Day 3 of the all-new, the halftime show. We went from 5 massive mistakes on Monday to about 3.
We're getting better.
Yesterday, although the really bad one was referring to Tyler as Preston.
Well, again, my mom's called me every member of my family but myself, so it's okay.
So we'll cut down on those today. Let's lead you off here with what we are tracking here at the moment. Can't do this every day because it's not every day where we're tracking something, but we are tracking a potential release. I think that's the other thing, Tyler. We're assuming that today we're going to get Rasul Faison news. We don't know that to be true, though.
We've gotten a lot of nuggets that suggest something is possibly, maybe, potentially going to happen today. Going back to Scott Hamilton's story in the Post and Courier the other day, Rasul Faison tweeting out, hey, appreciate some extra prayers yesterday, that tells us, okay, he knows something is maybe going to happen within the next 24 hours.
Here, you want to start the Wednesday show off with a wild, overly dramatic take?
Sure, go for it.
Is this one of the top 5 most important days for the 2025 football season?
Oh, man. Yeah, because the confidence in your running back room, I think, takes a significant dip if he is not ruled eligible, and it takes a significant upswing if he is.
Yeah.
So, there's light hinging on this.
Which is odd also because we really don't know a whole lot about Rasul Faison except the stats. Hey, if you were out there last year in 2024 and whatever late night game or Thursday night game or whatever, and you were watching Utah State and you're like, I watched that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, kudos to you. I can pretty much guarantee you none of us around here did that.
Look, looking at the numbers, he's a guy that obviously took the bulk of the carries, had over 1,000 yards. We're good at breaking tackles, at yards after contact, much like Rocket Sanders. And I'm not saying he's going to come in here and be Rocket Sanders necessarily, but you see that kind of mold. Now, with anybody, there's always going to be the concern of, okay, how are you going to go from being in the Mountain West to being in the SEC, as opposed to Rocket Sanders, who played in the SEC at Arkansas, and we kind of knew what to expect with him, assuming he was going to be fully healthy. So it's not a complete, yes, I know exactly what it's going to be like if he gets ruled eligible, but you feel better about your room if he's there, as opposed to saying, okay, now between Attaway and between Isaiah Gustave and Matthew Fuller and Jordan Howe, how are you going to figure this out? You'd much rather have everybody available as opposed to just those 4 other guys.
Yesterday, Athlon Sports put out their bowl projections.
Yes.
Let me ask, did you see these?
I did not see Athlon's. I've seen most of the other ones up to this point.
So I feel like the answer to this is real easy. This is going to be easy for a lot of people, but they had South Carolina in the ReliaQuist Bowl. Woohoo!
That's been the common one for about everyone.
Yeah, that's because that's about a 7-5 with 4 good. I don't think this year there's any good losses.
Yeah, and it changes now because the playoff expanded, and again, if the SEC gets 5 teams in the playoff, you're theoretically the 6th or 7th team at that point. Right. So it kind of varies, but yeah, you're around a 7-8 win type of team.
So does the Rasul Faison news today, you go, boy, Raymond James, ReliaQuist, man, that would be a disappointment. If it's a negative. It's a negative, you go, oof. No, let me go back to that. Pro. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how I'm trying to word this.
Okay.
You go, boy, that's a disappointment.
Mm.
No Rasul Faison. You go, boy, I'll take it. I signed me up for it today.
Listen, you're already replacing a lot, and if you sat here and told me right now that with no other context this team was going to win 8 games, I'd be like, you know what? I'll take that. Given everything you lost from a year ago, the questions we have going into the season, as much as you would like to be in the mix for the playoff, I think that would be an acceptable kind of season. And yeah, especially if Faison's not ruled eligible and you don't know what the running back situation is going to be, found a way to win 8 games, it'd be like, okay, I would take that.
Yeah, against that schedule, especially the back about the October and November part. But we'll keep you updated. Tyler is on it here. I'll do my best to continue to stay on it, and hopefully within the next 3 hours, we will get information that we need to know.
Yesterday, we learned the Media Days representatives at 2 o'clock. So, I don't know. Now that you're in the afternoon portion, we do get breaking news. Yeah. So, this is part of the fun.
Yeah, get the TV up. By the way, today, SEC Takeover Week taking place in South Carolina today. And as I looked up here when I walked in the studio, Texas A&M is the game of choice.
That is right. Earlier, we had the Clemson basketball game, one of the few bright spots from the men's basketball season.
I think you mean the bright spot.
The bright spot, yeah. Before this, volleyball had a win over I think a 18th ranked Florida team. They played the football game against Missouri earlier on this morning. Softball winning against LSU. The one problem I have with today's rundown, at 4 o'clock, it's the first baseball game of the series against LSU, which they did win on that Thursday. They proceeded to lose the next 2 games and end what was a disastrous regular season. I don't think baseball should have been featured at all on this thing, if I'm being quite honest.
Yeah, that was the one that that, in all seriousness, that was the first time I really questioned Paul Mainieri. And the reason I say that, not that there wasn't bad games ahead previous. There was some, obviously, you had the Florida and the Auburn games in which South Carolina was outscored, 24-2 and 22-3 or something of that nature.
Yeah, all those big numbers run together at this point.
Unfortunately, yes. But the reason I said that is because Paul Mainieri basically came out after that game bragging about beating number 1.
Yes.
Or beating LSU. I can't remember if LSU was number 1 at that point.
They were number 1.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. And it was to that point that I was kind of like, well, wait a minute now. This is South Carolina baseball.
Sure.
And you Coach Paul, you understand, like, just beating number 1 out of 3.
Exactly.
Doesn't, like, give me the this is better. We're going somewhere.
That's the thing is, like, in baseball, it's about the series. Like, okay, you won game number 1 and lost the next 2 games, so it means nothing, essentially.
Right.
Like, yeah, if you swept them or took 2 out of 3, then, yeah, sure, brag about that. But winning 1 game, and it was the crazy was it a walk-off? Wild pitch walk-off, if Preston considers it a walk-off, that is.
Good point.
So it was a lot of chaos, too. It wasn't like your normal type of game. And he wasn't even, like, excited when the game was over. He was very stoic when it ended. It was very weird. And, of course, we've learned since then some of the details behind the scenes, specifically about that point in time. So, yeah, I'm not watching that game with any kind of joy of like, oh, that was a fun night, because if you hadn't already tuned out, you weren't watching that game with much optimism.
No, and like I said, it's not. I don't know how you want to phrase it, but that was the first time that I went, wait a minute, because in Preston, I thought Preston hit this nail on the head for a while there. Mark Kingston's expectations of what South Carolina baseball was didn't align with South Carolina baseball fans' expectations, and I think that's what hurt him in the end. Because I've always said this, Chad Holbrook included, there are few programs in this country that would have fired Chad Holbrook and Mark Kingston, because they did have success.
They made the postseason.
They had success.
They just didn't have Ray Tanner success.
Exactly. They didn't do what South Carolina baseball fans are expected of. And I don't even mean get to the College World Series. It was just, hey, Founders Park wasn't built for regionals. It was built for super regionals, and we're struggling to get there. And again, there's a lot of schools out there that would have looked at baseball and said, hey, those guys are doing good enough. They're making the postseason at least 1 every 2 years. We'll stick with that. But all right, so we got that. South Carolina's just kicked off, and somehow Texas A&M, in the time it took me to say that, has scored.
That Amari Daniels long touchdown run,
Gotcha.
I believe.
All right, 17-12. If you've forgotten, we'll keep you updated. I think broadcasting rules allow us to do a little bit more of a play-by-play.
When it's not actually live.
Okay. I'm glad you're here to keep me straight. But Texas A&M now in South Carolina. Again, SEC Network, if you got a TV in your office, if you got a TV in your office or you're heading to lunch, 17-13 on South Carolina Takeover Day on the SEC Network. So we'll keep you updated on this game in case you've completely forgotten the results.
You running on the field for that one, by the way?
No. I don't want to. When I talk about where I sit, people kind of. I haven't been on. The last time I went on the field, you're not going to remember this. The last time I went on the field, and some of you will, South Carolina rallied from 2 touchdowns down in 2001. Phil Petty to Hart Turner in the back of the end zone, 37-36 over Alabama.
Yeah, it would have been 5 at that point in time.
You probably don't remember that game.
I don't recall that one.
That was another one of those phenomenal JP Jefferson Pilot noon games that South Carolina. And by the way, I think somebody over here, maybe it was yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Jay and Terry played the call of, it might have been yesterday, might have been Monday, played the call of Eric Kimry.
Mm-hmm.
Another phenomenal Jefferson. We might have to do a poll on that.
Oh, listen.
Your favorite Jefferson Pilot South Carolina broadcast.
Given the fact that you said it was on JP Sports, I'm assuming it was a noon kickoff.
Yes.
Was it at least 10,000 degrees outside?
I was a student, and I might have tailgated prior.
Okay, you don't remember.
Don't remember. I just remember at the end going out on the field.
It was never a cloudy day when JP had your game. It was always bright sunshine, to the point where it almost diluted the picture a little bit because how bright it was off at the green grass. Classic JP Sports.
So anyway, we'll keep you updated on all of that this morning as we roll along. Men's soccer coach Tony Annan set to join us here in the next few minutes. He will arrive, and we'll put him on, and we'll talk a couple different things with him. Obviously, get an update. All right, how are you looking? And I want him to explain, and Tyler, I don't think you've ever heard this. I want him to explain what the NCAA allows him to do to prep his team for the start of the season, and how much preseason practice they get as a team with their head coach. before they actually start the exhibition season. So we'll get into that with him. Also, all right, we're officially into revenue sharing. We are officially into what the NCAA has deemed revenue sharing. Texas Tech is one of those programs that, like, don't worry about it. We don't really need your money.
Sure.
We're going to figure out how to handle this on our own. So we'll get into that, a little bit of that with him. And then also USA, Mexico from the other night. From the last time I talked with Coach Annan, they have rallied significantly from what we thought at the time. So we'll catch up with him. He's coming in the door here in just a second. We'll catch up with him, and we will go from there. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, and Superintendent Captain Ed Bird here on the Halftime Show. Tyler, you know Coach?
Yeah.
Coach? Okay, good. Let me do this. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. We're for nearly 30 years. Mid-State Roofing has been the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. It's that 30 years that is your assurance, that 30 years of being the proven leader that is your assurance that their professionals will provide proper advice, service, and results to the needs of your facility. But importantly, they're going to do it in a manner both safe and pleasing to your operation, your home or your business. Here in Columbia, in Charleston and Greenville, in Aiken or Augusta, wherever it may be this afternoon, if you have a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. Give them a phone call. 803-356-1919 is how you can reach out. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you. If you give them a phone call after hours, they'll have a Mid-State Roofing they'll have a on-call technician ready to take your phone call. Give them a phone call during hours. It's a Mid-State Roofing employee. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. 12:16 on your Wednesday afternoon. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, producer Ed Bird, superintendent Ed Bird. Seems like his kids are starting to gear up to go back to school.
We drop him down at the beginning of every show and have to build him
back up
by hour. Okay.
Yeah, it's only if he continues to do a good job, which he's been phenomenal for the first 6 hours.
I think we could get Dave back tomorrow.
Oh, do we?
I think so, because Jen's back tomorrow, so I think we get Dave back.
Dave comes back.
Yeah.
My job right now is to show up here on time.
There you go.
Just show up on time. And good news is Coach Tony Annan joins us. No problem getting you over here today on a camp day, huh?
It's lunch right now. It's lunchtime.
Been a little warm out there?
Just a little. Probably the warmest one of the summer.
Fourth year we've done this? Fourth year that you've done the camp? Is that right?
Yeah, fourth season, yeah. Fourth summer.
How's it been so far for this? Because everything's growing. We've talked about it. You have the attendance for you and the women's team has led the nation the last few years. How are you seeing that correlate with more kids maybe showing up at camp?
Yeah, our numbers are up again this summer. We've gradually, slowly built the numbers up every year, and this has probably been our most. We did an extra camp this year, and it filled. So, there's a demand, so we're doing it, and it's been fun. So, numbers yet.
And then after this week, you get one more vacation before really, I guess, digging into the season. And I want you to explain, because, I'm going to bring Tyler along. Tyler's got him. We watched, he agreed. We watched a little bit of USA Mexico, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment and your thoughts on kind of the recovery from the last time I talked to you, where they finished up the summer. But what have you seen so far? Or I tell you what, I want you to go back real quick. Explain to Tyler, and for those that have never heard you in the afternoon, the NCAA rules and what it limits and allows you to do with your program during the summer, and when you get to personally be back around your kids.
Rules. They leave school, obviously, beginning of May, and we are not allowed to do anything with them until August the 5th.
Jeez.
So a lot of the guys will come back on campus this week, and they'll do captain's practice together. They'll work with strength and conditioning, but they cannot have a ball during the strength and conditioning sessions. No equipment used that is soccer specific. And we cannot be there. We cannot be around it. We are not allowed to get reported.
Listen to that. Go back to that. Not allowed to get a report on what's going on.
All right.
So if someone comes back 20 pounds overweight, we're not allowed to know that. Like, these are the rules that are in place. Not that our guys do, but.
So, and I'm assuming you're a strict rule follower yourself.
Oh,
but
very, yes.
How do you go about knowing that everybody else is following these same rules? Because that's a hard thing to enforce, I would imagine.
It is. It's on compliance, schools, compliance departments to enforce it. And, like everything in college sport, where there's a will, there's a way, and people do what they want. But we've got a pretty good compliance office that holds a tight line, so we kind of stick to the rules.
That's what I was telling you about. It's crazy.
Yeah,
he mentioned August the 5th, and
that's what 3-4 weeks for your first game?
Not even.
Not
16
even.
days.
Wow, jeez.
Which is not enough time to prepare a soccer team. But
have you ever gotten a reasoning why, say, football or others are allowed to do a lot more? Baseball, I think, gets a full month. Have you ever, coming from the professional leagues, even at the beginning, did you ever go like, hey, you guys got a reason for doing this?
I've asked, but I get crickets.
Much like the Rasul Faison situation with the football
Pretty
team.
much. Yeah.
Nobody really knows.
But
Pretty much.
I would imagine most coaches probably share your frustration. Like, hey, I need more time with my team to prep for the actual season coming
there
up.
are a lot that I talk to that are frustrated that they can't do more. The women's game is actually changing to where the coaches can be with them 2 weeks before. So an extra 2 weeks now.
Okay.
So next summer they'll be able to they'll have 2 extra weeks. The men's game is trying to push some other sort of policy. And if we don't get it, I wonder if they'll fall back to the women's. But right now, we are where we are. So.
You mentioned it, and Coach has finally put out I say finally, it's actually a couple weeks ago, but it's since we last talked.
Mm-hmm.
The schedule's out, and you will have an exhibition game. Now, he mentioned he gets to start working with his team on the 5th. Technically, that is the first time he can lay eyes on them. He really, I guess, could bump into them in the hallway. I'm reckoning. I mean, you can't.
I'm allowed to talk to them.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just can't talk X's and O's, apparently.
So that starts on the 5th of August, which I believe that's going to be about a Tuesday, if I'm looking at it right, because on Saturday, August 9th, he'll have his first exhibition game. It'll be on the road against North Carolina State. And I think you played them last year?
We play them every preseason, yeah.
Okay. And then after that, his second exhibition game will come against Wofford. And for folks that want to go ahead and plan ahead. That'll be Saturday, August the 16th. So you see how quick. That's what I was trying to let him.
That's insane.
Yeah, and then it's off and running. We're away the first 2 games of the season, one at Charleston, one at Clemson.
So for soccer, how long does it take to implement like the X's and O's, the game plan, the strategy, especially with new guys coming in? Because guys that played for you last year, like they have an idea of what you're going to do, and obviously you're ingrained in the system. But when you have like freshmen coming in, like, hey, welcome to the team, we're going to play a game in 4 days. How do you go about like getting them up to speed on where they need to be within your system?
It's really difficult. And people will say, oh, that's coach speak, if you're not ready, you're not ready, blah, blah. But it's difficult. We're bringing in 12 guys this year. And most years, it's between 6 and 12 guys, sometimes more, right? To get 12 guys who have never played in our system of play or worked with myself and Nathan and Josh, how do you do that? I wouldn't say it's impossible, because it's not, but it's a lot of work to try and get them anywhere near it. But that's just the way it is, and we just got to roll with it. So,
Text weighs in. Upstate Gamecock says, my son has done Coach Annan's soccer camp, including this week. It's his favorite camp of the year. And I know for people that want to start looking ahead, we'll keep everybody updated. I know you don't have the dates out for next year, but one of the fun things that I've noticed that my son, when he was going, that a lot of the Lexington kids got to do is you have players that are out there, always a fun part, and they get to kind of build a bond with the players you have. And who do you have out there kind of laughing and cutting it up this year?
We had Gabe Nickerson, we have Junior, Phillips out there this week, the goalkeeper, Philip Verster. Who else have we had out there? Sonny Quintanilla's out there. We've got about 5 or 6 of our guys this summer.
And just to that, because I think one of the things you've noticed that you've built around here is a younger fan base that is now comes to the games and they're kind of yelling out at other players and they get to know them. And after the game, people can kind of go on the field at times, and especially after a win, it's a lot more fun to have those players interact with the younger kids that have gotten to know you at camp, have gotten to know the players.
Yeah, I love that part of it. It's part of, obviously, the fun part of the camp is the interaction with the kids and trying to spread the word of soccer. But after the games, when they're there and they recognise the players and the players can go up to them and give them autographs and high fives, it's the best part of it.
And between doing things like that, and obviously you've come on here with Bill and Preston plenty of times, and excited having you here, on the afternoon show now. Like, do you feel like people know you like on a more personal level than say some other coaches that are just kind of there to coach the game, and then they kind of go back to being hidden outside of coaching? Yeah,
I mean, to each their own, right? Yeah. I'm a social person. I like to be around. I like to meet people. I enjoy it. I go on every Gamecock Club thing with Shane, so it's kind of like the road show. And you'll be surprised how many people actually say, oh, I've heard you on the radio. Plus, I've got an accent, which makes me a little different to the regular.
Yeah, we don't have to introduce you quite as much.
Everybody knows who it is.
But I get people all the time, more than saying, oh, you're the soccer coach, I get more, oh, you're the guy from the radio, which is not a good thing.
I feel like here in this community, like people like coaches that feel like a part of the community, ones that are out there that you can see at the grocery store, at these, welcome home events, on the radio, or whatever it may be. Like, they like people that embrace what Columbia and Carolina is. Yeah, I mean, me and the family have embraced living here wholeheartedly. We love it, and it's a great town, and it's a sports fanatic town because of Gamecocks being the thing. And like I said, to each their own. Some coaches like to be extremely private, which, that's their prerogative, but I kind of like being out there, and I kind of like meeting people, and that's the best people I've worked with in my career over the last 30-odd years are the most outgoing, kind of humble people with everybody. So even, like, I go back to Tata Martino, who was a World Cup coach who we worked with for 2.5 years. He would hug the janitor every morning. The next guys after him wouldn't even look at the janitor every morning. And there's a reason he's been successful everywhere he's gone. So I've learned a lot from coaches, to accept offers of people to come and speak. And I enjoy coming on the radio. This is the first time in the afternoon, not with Jay.
Yeah. So a lot better. We're going to get you more integrated. Jay, we are going to talk a little Premier League. That's a little less than a little over a month away. But
I would get up early and come on in the morning because I enjoy doing it. Yeah. And I think if you want the sport to grow and you want people interested in the sport, I think you've got to be out there and you've got to be personable. I don't think Bill's going to offer you a Pop-Tart on this show, unfortunately.
You're
plenty of them.
Good. I know you're. Yeah. Oh, nobody's brought any this year?
No, it's died a death after the
Well, guess
first
what?
year.
Guess what, Tyler? Guess what we'll be doing next year when we get around to camp. This is kind of your coach's show. We get a little bit more in depth on the team. You don't get your Fox, whatever channel Shane Beamer show is on or anything. So, real quick on the team injury update for what you're expecting to start with when you get to August. Anybody that you know for sure is out for the first month of August.
Unfortunately, Gabe Nickerson is out. He tore his ACL at the end of January in practice, and he's just not going to make it back for the season, which is really, really bad news because we really had high hopes for him. So far, touch wood, he's the only one out for the season. We've had a few knocks from the Summit Leagues that are getting taken care of, but right now we feel like we're in a really good position with injuries and roster.
The one thing that you've talked about a little bit and that is important is leadership. Do you have that conversation with two or three guys going, hey, you got to step up as a leader, as the voice of the team? And if so, and you don't need to say who, but have you had that conversation yet?
Yeah, I mean, the other good part about this roster this year is we did really well in the transfer portal. So we've got a few guys, actually we've got about 5 or 6 guys that only have 1 or 2 years that have been in college soccer for the last 2 to 3 years. So I think automatically they will probably take a leadership role, which means we'll have more leaders in the dressing room than just 1 or 2, which I'm excited about. I think there will be a leadership group more than just 1 or 2 guys.
The other question I would ask you here is you've built this schedule up, and I know last year, I think it was the first time since 2016 there was double-digit wins, and it should have been one more. People don't really realize how badly you got kind of, for lack of a better term, screwed out of a win. I believe it was against Jacksonville. So you should have had another victory. Jacksonville, the game ended at it ended before halftime or it ended at
55 minutes.
55 minutes, and it's got to go to 65 to be
75.
75, and Jacksonville basically couldn't find a date to remake that game, and cost you would have been another victory. But this year it looks like you've upgraded the schedules. Is it the toughest schedule you've put together since you've been here?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think definitely we felt like the RPI last year, even though we got in the habit of winning and we were doing well and playing well, the RPI, the teams that we thought might do better did not. Our conference was down a little bit with RPI, so we didn't, our RPI dropped towards the end, which we can't have that. So we've gone out and went after top 25 teams that are constantly in the top 25. So it's a tough schedule, but again, I feel like we've got a good roster that we can at least compete with that.
Yes.
Real quick before the break, like, how much say do you actually have on what the schedule looks like? Some sports like football, coach really doesn't have much of a say in that.
I have total control of the schedule,
okay.
apart from the conference and the conference dates. But I have total control and everything else.
And again, first regular season game will be Thursday, August 21st down at Charleston for a contest with them, and that'll be followed up on a Tuesday this year with Clemson on August the 26th, and we'll tell you more about that. But coming up next, we'll talk to you a little bit about revenue sharing now in place. I'm not going to ask you personally about you, but how you seeing it affecting soccer, how you seeing it affecting the sport as a whole. We'll talk about that. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner. Supervisor, is that better instead of superintendent?
Sure, why not?
Supervisor Ed Bird and men's soccer coach Tony Annan in studio. You're listening to the Halftime Show. 12:35 p.m. I say that strongly because the last few days we've had a couple minor mistakes here with announcing time and what particular show.
Once we cross over into the 13s, once we get into the actual military time of it, that's when you start messing up.
That's also, yesterday that threw me. I had to do quick math while trying to say it. So, Coach Tony Annan in with us. We hope to have him for a few more times before the season gets started on August the 5th with he'll be able to spend time with the team. August the 9th, he'll have an exhibition game against North Carolina State, but that'll be in Raleigh. But the first time you can get out and watch the 2025 Gamecock soccer team will again be August the 16th, and that'll be when Wofford comes in. It'll be an exhibition game, but plan accordingly. It'll be a Saturday night at 7 p.m., and you'll want to get out and go check that out. And then the first home game of the year will be Friday, August the 29th, so you can make that a big, big weekend when USC Upstate comes to town, and plan on that accordingly, 7 o'clock for that game. We're officially into it. I don't think you Tyler, I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think we completely understood revenue sharing and everything that was going on. You had to understand it better. What have you seen essentially in the first 9 days of all this? Anything different than what you anticipated or how you saw it kind of going nationally or, in the Sun Belt?
Well, it's been for men's soccer. I'll speak for men's soccer. I can't speak for any other sport. Different sports have different amounts of rev share. I think what it's done in our division, it's caused a bit of a gap between the top 4 or 5 and the bottom 4 or 5 because schools can award as many scholarships as they want, right? That hits their cap for rev share. Some of the schools that are in our conference have gone between 15 and 20 scholarships. Some have not, right? So I think that what it's done is it's created a gap between not the haves and the have-nots, but who's spending money on soccer and who's not.
Right.
So I think that's how it's affected our division. There's certain teams in our division that have 20. There's some that have 18. There's some that have 15. There's some who have stayed at 9.9. And, I think that's going to be, if you want to compete, then we're going to have to find a way to do that, And if we're not getting 20 scholarships, that's what it is. We've just got to find a way to compete and be able to compete against the guys who do have 20.
From a national standpoint, are there schools that stick out in your mind that might put significantly more towards men's soccer than other schools? So like we talk about like with basketball, like, okay, the Big East might end up dominating men's basketball because most of the schools don't have to worry about football, so more money can go towards basketball. They can get better players and all that kind of stuff. Are there schools out there that might put significantly more towards their soccer program compared to the average school that does have to deal with football, baseball, basketball, things like that?
Yeah, it's funny because we were in the portal. We were in what I call the portal wars with different schools. Take a Portland, for example, who do not have football. Mm-hmm. They've obviously dropped a lot of rev share into their men's soccer program because we lost out to a kid because Portland offered him this much money in rev share, but we couldn't offer him that. So we went to Portland. Usually we would probably win that battle against Portland, right? Clemson have given every athlete a full ride, so they've got 28 scholarships, allegedly, right? You can't get a straight answer on a lot of people when you say, well, what have you got? How much did you get? People don't want to tell you.
It's like playing poker.
Yeah, it is. And but I know a few, and there are some schools that are investing in their men's soccer program. And to be fair, those schools have got a pretty good rep when it comes to men's soccer.
So, evolution of the sport. And you've really, I say, only been in the college side of things for, 4 years, professional background. And we're going to talk professional soccer when we come back in the next break. But you're going to have to tell Tyler a couple teams. And I guess don't
get him into one,
don't give him Tottenham. We got to take that one out. But
wouldn't do that too.
My fandom is wide open.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Yeah, we will. You got a month.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
But is this an evolution of soccer, in college soccer here? For us, is this is it a complete change? Is it a complete 180? Now you got to adjust maybe recruiting strategy and everything.
It's a difficult question. Obviously, since I've walked in the door, things have changed every year. The landscape's changed every year, and that's not me making an excuse for how it's gone for me. But it's been difficult every year to evolve and change direction. Last year NIL was a big thing before RevShare came in, and we did really well with NIL. A lot of people got behind us. A lot of people helped us. So the NIL piece we did quite well with. Now, donor NIL has gone away, and now RevShare is here. if you're not getting rev share, or if you're not getting enough rev share, and this team is, then it makes it hard to compete. So, is it an evolution? I think it's just a different direction, honestly, and it's up to us to compete, and it's up to us to grind it out and try and get results, and that's what we're doing.
I know you mentioned you're very good friends with Shane Beamer. Y'all spend a lot of time together, going to these different events, being on flights, being in cars. Lamont Paris as well. I know you've got other friends within the university. How much do y'all as coaches talk about this? How much does the whole department, or is it like a every month meeting and then, okay, it's just this is what we're dealing with?
I mean, we have head coaches meetings where we discuss this. There's not a lot of talk about how much did you get, what did you get. There's none of that.
Okay.
Like, there's no communication, I don't think.
It's like being around employees that are working almost.
Yeah.
Don't talk about what
do you get paid?
You don't talk about salaries.
What's your bonus?
Right, right.
Shane's a bit bigger than mine. But I will say that, like, Shane and Lamont actually helped. I sat down with both of them and asked their opinions on recruitment and NIL and these things about, like, I had the chance to go get a player, and Lamont was like, do what's best for your program. You know, like, go do it. Like, so I feel like I can reach out to those guys for advice, but we don't talk about how much money we have, and I mean, we don't have any. So it's like, I've got nothing to come back to them with. But
well, and I think it's interesting from the coaching standpoint. Again, we're all under the umbrella of South Carolina here, but every coach wants to have the most they possibly can for their program. And right now, every sport kind of saying, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. And as time goes along, if one sport's doing better, one sport's struggling, I see a point where coaches start saying, hey, why are you giving this to this team? We need more over here. Like, I could see an issue arise at some point when those kind of conversations start happening.
yeah, I think obviously people have personal, ideas about why did they get that, why did they get that many scholarships, why, there's Title IX that plays into all that as well. I mean, you've just got to be accepting of what it is. But if you're talking about it from a school standpoint, look, football brings in all the money. Simple as that, right? The football, not my football. And we don't bring a lot of revenue in, right? So it makes sense to give the team that brings all the profit and all the money in, it makes sense to give them the most money. I mean, I'm logical about it. Some people, get their back up about it, but at the end of the day, I'm here to do a job, and I'll do my job as best I can. And if it's not good enough for somebody, then I can't control that.
803-404-6100. We'll come back. All right, we'll start the process of helping Tyler find a team here.
Wide open.
Wide open, and I got a couple questions for you here on this, so we'll get to these as well. You're listening to head men's soccer coach Tony Annan joining us, Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, and superintendent, or supervisor, I believe. Got to start writing these things down. Producer Ed Bird. You're listening to the Halftime Show. 12:47 on a Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, producer Ed Bird, and joined in studios. He'll do from time to time, and then we'll turn him loose to coach his own team and get ready for the 2025 season. Tony Annan joining us. And all right, Tyler, I know you got some of this when you've worked with Jay. There's some always soccer discussion.
As always.
But, Coach, let me get to a quick question here. Walt weighs in. I'm learning, Tyler. I'm nowhere near. So when I read this name, number one, I'm going to mess it up. And two, I'm not going to know who he played for. But Walt says, Coach, Anthony Iglanya, close enough?
Ilanga, yeah.
Okay. Well, he said it, not me. What are your thoughts? Gordon, Isaac, and Ilanga, front three is scary good.
Very scary and very good.
Okay. Who do they play for?
Newcastle.
Okay. All right.
Newcastle just bought Ilanga.
Okay. Where did he come from?
Nottingham Forest, 55 million plus some add-ons. What I would call the Saudi Arabia tax, because we've got so much money, people are hiking their prices against us. But yeah, scary talent, scary fast, highest assists in the league last year, I think. And between him, Gordon, and Isaac, it's a scary front three.
Okay, so for the record,
all right.
Tottenham is off the table here.
Yes.
Don't do that to yourself.
Was that Preston's team?
That was Preston's
They
team.
assigned themselves with him?
Because they had a Gamecock on their badge.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say I had a buddy that I worked with in my prior radio station that was a Man City fan, specifically to oppose Man United.
Yeah, but that's kind of bandwagon-y.
Okay.
Okay, so don't want to tell you, Man City is off the table.
All right.
Jay is Arsenal.
Jay is
Arsenal.
Very
and,
Arsenal.
Yeah.
And John Whittle is
Arsenal.
Okay, so let's take those off the table. Jay's
All right.
Arsenal.
All
So
right.
I've probably become more, because of Coach, a Newcastle fan. But I will admit, because I saw their first ever game back in the Premier League when they came back, I think it was like a 28-year lapse in time. Nottingham Forest, like the scene there was absolutely crazy. This was, what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Nottingham.
Yeah, is it Nottingham?
Nottingham.
And this is also the segment where I work on my speech.
Well, you butcher English language. Yes.
But, all right, give him some options. Give him a couple options
Here's
here.
some options here.
And we will allow you to follow Coach.
All right.
I'll
I'll
tell
have
you,
a hat ceremony. How
A
about
good
that?
I
team,
like that.
Yeah.
a good team to follow, I think, at the moment are Villa. Aston Villa.
All right.
They've got Garnet shirts, right? So you've got a little bit of the Gamecock connection there if you want that. Great coach, good squad. Did really well last year. I think Villa's a good option. I think, obviously, Newcastle for me is the team. But I would say Villa is a really good option because they're kind of an underdog, but they've proven that they're not.
Okay.
That would be my. But I'd let you decide.
Put that under consideration.
You got to look. You got to look.
Yeah.
We're gonna let you pick that out.
They've had looks like some decent finishes around the top five the past couple of years.
West Ham, another Garnet club.
Okay.
So the Hammers, very workmanlike sort of London club, but more blue collar London than posh London.
Okay.
So we will open the door, and what we'll do is you want a hat ceremony
Yeah,
about
I'll do a hat ceremony.
August 4th. We'll try and narrow it down to 3 teams, and maybe we can get Coach back in August 4th. I know that's the first day. The only reason I know that's the first day of school for my kids. I think that's on Monday.
All right.
But we'll bring Coach in, and we'll make an official announcement for that. How's
Okay,
that?
we can do that.
You got
cool with that.
You got until August 4th. August 15th is the start of the Premier League, Liverpool and Bournemouth in that game. And then Saturday the 16th gets everything really going, which is also the day that y'all play Wofford here in an exhibition game. Give us 2 or 3 teams. I don't know how much you've really been able to keep up. You've had multiple camps this summer. You're trying to get a vacation. You got younger kids trying to spend time with them. You got 2 or 3 teams to maybe keep an eye on this year that makes a run. We'll put Aston in there, but they play Newcastle. First game of the Premier League. I believe this is going to be at Newcastle, and that'll be at 7:30 in the morning. Also, the reason I've gotten into something, when you do an early morning show, I don't get past about 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. You got 2 or 3 that you want to throw out as dark horses?
I think Spurs are going to be a dark horse this year.
Really?
I know people are going to criticise that choice, but I think, they've changed again. Can this guy get it done? I don't know. I mean, it's one of them, right? So, but there's something about Spurs where they could get really fortunate this year.
Okay.
They've got a good squad. So, Spurs, I think Newcastle's going to be right up there this year if they keep on the trajectory they're on.
It sounds like it.
Your usuals are going to be in there, Arsenal, City, Man. I would hate to see Man U resurrect themselves because I can't stand Man U, but it'll be a good test for Amaron this year to see if he can actually do and back up what he says he can do.
Okay.
So We'll see. Liverpool will be very good again. Very good.
Got another question in for you. It says, Coach, how do you feel about Harry Kane playing for Bayern Munich?
I've kind of ambivalent about it, to be honest. I like Harry Kane as a player. I think he won a trophy for his first time in his career when he went there. So I think he ain't got much left in the game, like much time left, I don't think.
All right, see if some of these are. I got texter weighs in to Tyler. Come be an Evertonian.
That's a good one. I was going to say Everton.
All right.
Everton's a good club.
Okay.
And I was there as a young boy. As a schoolboy, I was at Everton. So I've got a bit of a soft spot.
My recruitment's wide open. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
please.
Their nickname is the Toffees.
Okay, I like that.
Pretty cool name.
I'll also accept any NIL offers people want to.
I understand.
Shoot
Good
my way.
idea.
Yeah, me too.
Money talks. Walt says, and Coach, you're going to have to help us with this real quick. And I'm not going to say it correctly, but Walt says you're formally invited to be a Geordie. A Geordie?
Geordie.
Sure.
Okay,
Do you want to know why they're called Geordies as well? I'll give you some history.
sure.
Well, real quick, who is that?
Geordie are people from Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a Geordie.
Oh, okay. All right.
And if you're from Newcastle, you're the last city in England before Scotland.
Okay.
When the Scots invaded England, they only got as far as Newcastle. And Newcastle stopped the invasion. So King George bestowed the title of King George's men upon the people of Newcastle. The nickname for George is Geordie. And that is where Geordies come from.
Okay.
There you go, Walt.
I like the lore behind that.
See, hey, listen, and the next time we get Coach in, we'll get some bird watching. Did you know bird watching is a favorite here?
No, I did not know that.
Ornithology. Yes. Young ornithologist.
So see, folks, when we bring Coach in, you get a little bit of history lessons
Yeah.
or things like that.
I mean,
Just
you didn't
like
listen
that.
to the yellow-throated warbler segment that we did.
I think I remember hearing that now.
the yellow-throated warbler.
That we found in Colombia. Not this Colombia, Colombia.
Different Columbia.
Yeah.
So we got a lot for you there, and we will check and see where Tyler. The next time we get Coach in, we'll tentatively shoot for August the 4th.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, before the season gets going.
yeah. Maybe we'll have to back it up 1 week. We'll cut down on I think, and another person who's listened, Coach, an Oasis fan. Yeah, we'd covered that, didn't we?
That's my band.
I remember that too. Yeah, I heard that.
There you go.
That's my
Appreciate it.
band.
Know you got to get back to camp.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely have you on before your season starts.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Coach Tony Ann and men's soccer coach, heading back to take care of the younger ones at USC Soccer Camp. Hour 2 on the way. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder and First Palmetto Bank. Let me tell you, it is that time of the year where you might be thinking about everything that's coming up in the fall, like such as maybe building a home, maybe buying a home, or maybe you want to try and see if you can save money and you just want to refinance. Well, that means it's time to call Jacob Crowder, the Mortgage Guru with First Palmetto Bank, 803-719-1005. Again, that's 803-719-1005. Check out and see what the interest rates are and what it would cost you to refinance, to purchase a new home, or to build a new home. Jacob's the expert on that and is ready to help you today. And First Palmetto Bank, locally owned and operated, which means quick and precise underwriting. So give them a phone call today, 803-719-1005. Again, that's 803-719-1005. Tell the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder, that Bill Gunner sent you. 1 p.m. or 1300, hour 1300. Is that how I say it?
Yeah, either way works. You can put your phone on military time. That might help you out.
No. I'd be late or early, not like, oh, he's 5 minutes later, oh, he's 5 minutes early. I'd show up like an hour late, or hour early. So no, we will not be doing that. But welcome back in the halftime show. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Lieutenant Ed Bird. I think we already used that one, but we'll come back to that one. Lieutenant Ed Bird behind the mic, or behind the producing studio, and we will get into some South Carolina discussion here this hour. Also, best coaching hires. Yesterday we did worst.
Yes.
Any that stood out to you yesterday that really were like, oh, yeah, that was a bad one?
I will say Scott Frost not being on that list was maybe a little surprising considering how badly it went when the expectations are really high. But I'd say most of the ones on the list were pretty appropriate, I would say. And again, I will say the Mike Price hired Alabama. If he just takes cash out instead of leaving the credit card with the woman, the entire history of college football changes because Saban never ends up there.
That's you talk about like the butterfly effect of things, and you go like, oh, he wasn't good.
Yeah.
So he got fired, so they had to hire somebody else.
Sure.
That's a great point about Mike Price and what happened. We say that. Remember his predecessor, the person that followed him was Mike Shula.
Yeah.
For all we know, Mike Shula could have gone on and have this incredible career, and Nick Saban never, but.
Yeah, and look, Price could have gone out there and had a decent couple of years. And again, it's the way things line up because Saban going to Alabama coincided with him having 2 okay years as the Miami Dolphins head coach, but that job had money written all over it. So he decided to go there, even though he said he wasn't going to go there. And obviously the rest is history. But yeah, you change one thing about the process leading up to that, and he never goes there. Maybe, I don't know, he goes to Arkansas or something like that, and they become the dynasty of college football. Who knows? Like, again, the entire history of the sport changes because of what Mike Price did in that hotel room at that golf event back in 2003.
Two really stood out to me in that situation. And number one was Chad Morris, and number 2 in that situation was also Mike Riley, because of how good Nebraska was. So we'll get into that coming up in the next segment. The best coaching hires, we discussed that yesterday. But going back to today, Tyler has been feverishly refreshing. We have been keeping all eyes on Rasul Faison watch 2025. Nothing as we sit here at 1:03 p.m. on a Wednesday that has come out about what his future is.
Yeah, no update as of right now. Again, we've been told this could possibly be the day. He tweeted out, hey, could use some extra prayers yesterday, so makes you think something's going to happen. But as we know with the NCAA, they could be like, maybe you'll learn by the end of the week. I don't know.
Everybody take a long lunch.
Yeah.
Everybody take a long lunch.
Why not? And again, they've got even more lawsuits in their face as of right now, so maybe that's further kick the can down the road. Who knows?
Yeah, and again, they may just be like, oh, and they don't get back to from a long lunch. They're like, yeah, we'll push it off to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anybody? So it's hot. We had a big meal. We're good.
I will say at this point, I'm very doubtful that he's going to get it. I'll be happy and surprised if he does, but I'm leaning towards the no at this point in time, unfortunately.
Totally understand. So we'll keep you updated, but at least as of now, no update on him. When now also, by the way, and I do wonder, real quick, we're going to talk a little SEC Media Days for a second here. What is the outward temperature of Shane Beamer next Monday if the ruling here is no? Because I know what he will feel like away from microphones.
Oh yeah.
What becomes the outward temperature of Shane Beamer at SEC Media Days if indeed Rasul Faison, and by the way, 803-404-6100, how should it be handled?
I feel like if it's a no, definitely, and again, he talks for 5-7 minutes before he starts answering questions. There's going to be a dig in there somewhere of the NCAA, this whole process. Like, he will let his frustrations be known if it does not go his way sometime today, possibly. I feel like that's almost a guarantee.
Do we get a quick press conference? Do we get a quick media interview?
I don't think it's a quick press conference, but...
Well, I just mean quickly called.
Oh, well...
Or does he call up Jay Phillips and be like, hey, I got some things I need to say?
I feel like if Jay gives him the platform, perhaps he'll take that up. I don't think it's something you call a press conference for necessarily. But it'll be talked about one way or the other, definitely at the beginning of next week when we hear from him at Media Days. And again, Shane wears his heart on his sleeve. He does not hide emotion very well, and you'll be able to tell just how much it's bothering him if it does not go the way that we want it to.
Yeah. So we hopefully by the end of this show, another hour and 55 minutes, hopefully we will learn something regarding the Rasul Faison. I lean more to if you were to maybe we'll put a poll out here during the break. Expected decision on Rasul Faison today. Yes? Eligible? No? Ineligible? No decision today. You got to how do you rank that?
At this point, at 105, I'm leaning towards maybe no decision today at all. But again, I'm unfortunately for the ruling itself, I think it's going to be a no. But hoping for a yes, but we'll see.
So we'll keep you updated throughout the next hour and 54 minutes now on what could be coming down the pipe from the NCAA, or if something is coming down the pipe from the NCAA regarding Rasul Faison. Paul Feinbaum was talking about main storylines entering SEC Media Days. Let's hear what he had to say on jocks out of Alabama. Here is Paul Feinbaum for next week's SEC Media Days talking about what the main storylines are.
Well, I think Brian Kelly is going to certainly be center stage. He's certainly one of the best-known SEC coaches. He may be the best known in many ways. And what he does, other than Kirby Smart, what he does, how he handles the podium next week, I think he'll handle it very well because he's a smart coach. But the questions are going to be once you get over there, is it CFP or bust? The same questions you hear on the ESPN shows about DeBoer. I think Brent Venables needs a good week because he is definitely in harm's way. I think there's just a lot of the predictable stories, but I think those are three that will be mentioned early. And by the way, I think Hugh Freeze would have been a secondary story until all this. Now I think he's a primary story.
803-404-6100. I know we've got a couple of LSU fans. I know we got a couple of Alabama fans. Mm-hmm. Who is actually under more pressure this year? Brian Kelly or Kalen DeBoer?
I would maybe lean a little bit more towards Brian Kelly because I feel like his time at LSU, outside of making that championship game in year one, has been a lot of underachieving. You had the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. You've had NFL caliber talent on both sides of the football, and you haven't done enough with it. And I brought this up earlier. You look at the last three coaches at LSU, Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. All three of those guys won national championships. I'd put Brian Kelly as like the second only behind Nick Saban in terms of best overall coach. And it's looking like he may not be that kind of coach that can get a national championship himself, despite how good he is, because for whatever reason, he's not getting the most out of the talent that he has.
Do you know, off the top, I didn't quite realize this, but do you know his record the first 3 years off the top of your head? Can you ballpark what his first three records have been at LSU?
I want to say it's like 35 and
40 total games, by the way. Just
40
before you get too carried away.
All right. Wait, I'm way too far ahead. It's like 27 and 13 or something.
It's a good try. 29 and 11.
29 and 11.
10 and 4, 10 and 3, and 9 and 4.
Okay.
I get it. I truly get it. Like, LSU has different expectations. We talked about South Carolina baseball fans having different expectations than the vast majority of the country. He could win 10 games again this year and not get into the college football playoff. And I don't see where you can fire him for that.
You can't, for one, his buyout's insane. Like, he's not going
LSU
anywhere.
has a way of coming up with money.
I don't feel like he's going anywhere anytime soon, but, like, the belief that, okay, yeah, they're going to take the next step, I think slowly starts to fade away. Because, again, they did go, what, was it 9-3 in the regular season last year, or was it 8-4?
9-4.
9-4.
Well, they went 8-4 in the regular season and won the Texas Bowl to get to 9-4.
All right. So, and again, they had that awful loss to Florida towards the end of the year, where when we talked about, Selection Sunday, it was South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss on the bubble, and LSU was nowhere near that, despite the fact that they had talent that you felt like was in the same kind of category as those kind of teams, but they were nowhere near the playoff because they lost games at the end of the season they shouldn't lose.
Then you go to Kalen DeBoer. Again, I can't see Kalen DeBoer getting fired after 2 years, but I bring this up because, Alabama fans and LSU fans are very close.
Yeah.
Difference is Alabama fans, having gone 2 consecutive years without a playoff appearance?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So
this is the longest drought they've had without a national championship since before Saban got there.
Yeah. So their fans' expectations have risen so significantly. I do see a scenario where Kalen DeBoer actually legitimately has to get to the college football playoff, or else year 3 is scorching hot. The only reason Brian Kelly might be able to get out of year 3, or excuse me, year 5, not year 4. Year 4 is this year. You lose Garrett Nussmeier, which could be good or bad.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is like you have a quarterback that you think is maybe the best quarterback overall in college football this year. Likely could be a first-round draft pick himself. And if at the end of the year we're looking at LSU saying, oh, well, they went 8-4 again and played in the Texas Bowl despite having maybe the number 1 overall pick, it's like, okay, why are you underachieving with this caliber of talent? They've got a really good receiving corps. A lot of guys on defense that are really good. It's like, why aren't you getting more out of these guys is the big question around Brian Kelly right now.
And I think that's really legitimate. Now, one other thing, focusing back towards South Carolina, where does South Carolina? You didn't hear Paul Feinbaum say that, and I understand. South Carolina's still kind of a darling.
Sure.
They're a darling, but because Shane Beamer's, look, this plays into it. You know this. Shane Beamer's great with the media.
Sure.
When he's winning, he's willing to cut up. He's willing to do all these things. People love him for that. If you're losing, you get frowned upon doing that.
Of course.
But with that being said, where does South Carolina fit into narratives and storylines next week?
You matter a lot more than you did a year ago.
Okay.
And we brought this up plenty of times last year. They got down on Monday. Beamer spoke, the players spoke and all that kind of stuff. And for the rest of the week, outside of us, nobody was talking about them because they didn't matter because they were a 5-7 team the year before that didn't make a bowl game and nobody really paid them any mind. This year, you're 9-3. You have what is a Heisman Trophy caliber candidate and quarterback. Yeah, you got a lot of questions on this team of guys that you're replacing, but you're a team that's thought of in that top half of the league. So, yeah, you're not going to be the main storyline, but you're one of those teams that people are going to bring up a lot more saying, hey, you got to go to South Carolina. How tough's that going to be? Like, you matter more this year than you did a year ago, which I think is a step in the right direction.
It'll be interesting to see who kind of gets deemed the darling, the sleeper, if you will. Is it South Carolina? Is it Auburn under Hugh Freeze, who a lot of people are giving them a lot of credit? Is it Florida? Who will still face a very daunting schedule. So a lot there on who everybody will look at your usual suspects. They'll look at LSU, they'll look at Alabama, they'll look at Texas, and they'll look at Georgia and be like, oh, there's your top 4 teams. I feel like then you're looking, what everybody seems to be looking at is South Carolina, Florida, and Auburn, and then it's like Ole Miss and Tennessee kind of behind them with, I'm kind of ranking them very quickly in order with like Texas A&M kind of the almost the 4th tier, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. And again, for teams like Tennessee and Ole Miss, last year you obviously said, okay, Tennessee made the playoff, Ole Miss should have made the playoffs, and well, how good are they going to be this year considering the talent that they lost? And both those teams replacing quarterbacks with versions that may not be as good. Again, a lot of questions around those teams, and unfortunately in the transfer portal era, we know the least amount about teams going into seasons than we've ever known before. So the narratives that we have in the middle of July could be vastly different than the ones we have in the middle of the season.
Who you got real quick? Quicker, bigger question marks. Ole Miss or Tennessee?
Tennessee. I don't know how Joey Aguilar fits in that offensive system. It's not made for every quarterback. And again, it was a last second, oh crap, we need a quarterback. Let's go get the guy that it would have been the quarterback that now Nico Iamaleava is replacing. It just seems like a mess to me. I don't know how well that's going to work.
803-404-6100. If you want to text in or call in for any of those questions we just brought up. When we come back, we get into the CBS Sports article. Yesterday we did, the worst coaching hires. Next up, we'll do, according to CBS Sports, the best coaching hires of the century. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Lieutenant Ed Bird. It is the halftime show. Almost messed up. The halftime show. Bill Gunner for Corley Pool Solutions. It doesn't take me, a sports analyst, telling you what the weather is out there. If you simply stepped outside, you know it's hot. And that probably leads you to wanting to go home in the afternoon and jump in your own personal pool. question is that pool being maintained properly, or does it have algae? Is something wrong with some of the chemicals? If that is the case, it is time for you to call Tracy Corley and Corley Pool Solutions. They don't just believe they are maintaining your pool. They know they're maintaining your lifestyle. That's right. Coming home in the afternoon, jumping in the pool, spending an evening in the pool with the family, or just simply having a cookout and using that pool as an ambiance and a backdrop. Your pool maintenance is extremely important to your lifestyle, and with Corley Pool Solutions, they understand that. So line up an appointment today and get them out to maintain your pool at home. 803-445-8109. With flat rate pricing, including all of the chemicals, you know exactly what you're paying for. So line up that maintenance today. 803-445-8109. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. $119 on a Wednesday afternoon. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Lieutenant Ed Bird as we roll along, and we've been trying to keep you updated. Russell Faison Watch 2025. And there's a slight update from a person who will be a weekly contributor on our program, J.C. Sherbert. Tyler Head.
Unfortunately, the update is there is no update. This is per the Big Spur message boards where J.C. Sherbert himself did say the report that that he would have a decision from the NCAA today is false. No decision coming today. No further update. That was about 10 minutes ago from J.C. Sherbert.
Again, it sounds like the NCAA, the people that run it, went out to a long lunch. They've had the big the big heavy lunch, and now they probably barbecue sandwiches up there. What's the heaviest lunch you can have?
Barbecue sandwich, mac and cheese, French fries, mashed potatoes, all the heavy stuff that puts you to sleep afterwards. Now, that doesn't mean the initial thought that something could happen today was wrong.
Right.
And again, Faison himself was saying, hey, guys, used some extra prayers yesterday, so that implied that he thought something was coming. But, yeah, the NCAA is like, actually, we got caught up with something. Yeah. We have new lawsuits coming in we need to address. We'll get to your thing at some point. All
I can envision is somebody up there has the email typed out. They're like, we'll just hit send when we come back from lunch.
Yeah.
And they came back like, this seems like too much work today. Don't hit send. I'll do it in the morning. I'll do it in the morning after a heavy barbecue mac and cheese. I like to envision there's a desk, right? And there's paperwork stacked a mile high. And Faison stuff's at the very bottom. And it's like, I have to move all this other stuff and I have to reorganize it. Not today. Yeah. Not today. Yeah. So that's the update is that there should be no update. Now, I appreciate JC's got great sources. I know that he is very very up to date on what is happening. I also don't know, unless you literally have a source inside the NCAA at this point, I don't. Who's to say that at 4:30 this afternoon something doesn't come down? And again, we're just going off the information that's been provided to us, and the common thought throughout the week was, hey, seems like Wednesday something might happen. And again, according to J.C. Sherbert, it does not seem like that is going to happen. As we trickled later into the afternoon, I'm leaning towards something not happening today, but there you go. There's your confirmation that you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And now if we have no decision by Monday, how's Shane going to address that is the question. I think unless the decision is made, and it's a yes. Yeah. I think you're going to get an angry Shane. Because we saw him progressively get angrier through the spring. Because, again, Faison comes in January, the Smith paperwork, okay, you didn't expect to be done in a week, but when spring practice started, all right, we're expecting it soon. Spring practice comes to an end, hey, still waiting. The welcome home events, he progressively got angrier and angrier, it felt like, every time we heard from him. And, again, last time we heard from him was, I guess, mid to late May, and was pretty upset then, so I can't imagine what he's like now. That's a great, you say that. It's been, I think Faison committed, I have to go back and look, but it was the end of December, the beginning, somewhere there at the beginning. You're right. What are we looking at? What is the paperwork lost? Did it actually never get submitted? Shane said they have sent everything that's been asked of them. They've hired an attorney? Yeah, which we thought, hey, now the ball's rolling. Yeah. That was over a month ago, maybe, more than that. No, that was May. Might have been the end of April, because it was basically, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the way I understood it. I'm not trying to make something up. This is the way I understood it at the time, because I remember Preston and I talking about it. I believe it was the same attorney. It is the same attorney that Miles Studi used to make sure he got his extra year of eligibility. It is the same. It's Darian Heitner. That's right. I'm seeing, he tweets a lot, so I'm not going to be able to backtrack it as easily. But because he tweeted out that day, hey, I'm on the Rasul Faison case here. And see if I can go back and see how long ago that was, because it's been a little while. 803-404-6100. We'll come back to that here and see if any more information pops up over the next 37 minutes this hour. Article on CBSSports.com. Best coaching hires of this century. Best coaching hires of this century. A couple instantly stand out to me in terms of this, and it appears to be one that is not on the list that I was a little surprised by. Mm-hmm. Can you guess which one? I guess you've looked at the list. Have you guessed which one that caught me a little off guard? I'm probably going to say Spurrier not being on this list for what his hire meant to South Carolina. Yeah, it's exactly the one. Let me give you a couple on here that I wouldn't say. Look, Jamie Chadwell's number 23 on this list. Sure. Jamie Chadwell was 22-3 in 2 years. Jamie Chadwell was a great hire. I like Jamie Chadwell even more because he kind of brought that Myrtle Beach flair of mullets and it just seemed like a cut-off jean short kind of guy. And it worked. It worked. Yeah, it was a great hire. He was innovative. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that hire. But you're telling me what he did is better than what Steve Spurrier did? Because there's no way to define it. Steve Spurrier made South Carolina nationally relevant. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting choice to leave him off this list. It seems to me they put a lot of stock into conference titles and all that kind of stuff, which
Spurrier did not win one of those, made one appearance in the conference championship game. So maybe that's kind of the hang up here that, let's just say they did pull off a conference championship in 2011 or 2012 and made a BCS bowl or maybe a national championship. I think there's no doubt that he's on this list. And
well, let me stop you. There's a coach on here who we all either love or hate, whatever direction you want to go. He hasn't won. He hasn't been to a conference championship game. He's still got a left to right on his resume. Better hire. Lane Kiffin at Mississippi, Steve Spurrier at South Carolina.
I think still Steve Spurrier at South Carolina because, Ole Miss has been a good to a decent program for a while. Again, they were winning 9-10 games with Hugh Freeze a decade ago. Spurrier came into a program that really had no consistent history of winning at all and suddenly took them towards the top of college football. That was a significant accomplishment. And I don't know, does it, I guess, technically pale in comparison to winning national championships at Florida? Sure. But it was still pretty darn important, and I think kind of set the table for the eventual success that Shane Beamer's having right now by saying, hey, you can actually come here and win.
I wonder if Spurrier not being on this list is more because of how long his tenure was.
Sure.
That's kind of what I almost wonder a little bit more because we are kind of talking, and I'm going to round it out. 4 years out of essentially not 10. 4 years out of 10 are really super special. There was another 8-win season, but so you go 5 wins. 5 seasons out of 10 that were super special. No losing seasons, though.
No.
Let's be clear about that. Only missed a bowl one season, and that's when they were 6-6, and the bowl selection committee said, hey, we like that Nick Saban guy in Alabama more than we do you guys. But, yeah, that's kind of my point on this. For those wondering, as again, CBS Sports, Nick Saban is the number one hire. I don't think there's any questions about that.
No doubt about that. And I'll say it with no hesitation, the greatest college football coach of all time. And I doubt in this new era we see anybody ever come close to touching as many national championships as he won between LSU and Alabama.
On the list, they go with Urban Meyer at Florida as number 2. 2 national championships with the Gators.
That's pretty convincing as well. And again, that was Florida program that had done it under Spurrier, but the Ron Zook years and things like that in between weren't all that great. And Urban Meyer immediately took them back to national prominence and made them the scariest team in college football for a handful of years.
And remember, it's not like Jim McElwain did fine, Dan Mullen did fine, but again, they didn't match what the Spurrier or the Urban Meyer years were.
It's a program that should consistently be good, and like you said, McElwain and Mullen both made conference championships, but we never saw those teams as viable national championship threats. But Urban Meyer was, again, the scariest program for a couple years with some controversial figures, to say the least, on those rosters.
Slightly.
They won. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, down there in Gainesville. And again, they have not seen the same kind of success since he left.
Number 3 on the list, a guy that we love to dislike, Dabo Swinney with Clemson. It is interesting the very end of this because obviously Dabo did an incredible job and has done an incredible job. But at the very end of this article, it says there are fair questions about whether he can return Clemson to the mountaintop in a new era, but those are champagne problems.
Sure.
His hire, and I've never thought about it this way, his hire remains one of the boldest and best swings a program has ever taken.
Oh, yeah. There was no guarantee that this guy was going to be successful. Hey, you just handed it over to the assistant after, we moved on from Tommy Bowden, and you never knew what was going to happen. And for a little while there, you questioned how good he was going to be. Clemsoning was a thing for a while.
Yeah.
All right, good, but not good enough. And then once he finally started clicking and they were winning national championships and playing in the playoff every single year, they rode that for several years. And again, even these past couple of years, the down years, so to speak, have still been good, still made the playoff. This past year, obviously, won the ACC championship. So their bad years are still not that far away from what their best years were.
803-404-6100. Coming back, we will get into the best hire for South Carolina. Ray Tanner, Dawn Staley, Steve Spurrier didn't win a championship like those two did, but
that's true.
Let's be honest, he's up there.
A lot of candidates.
You want to go crazy? How about some dude named Beamer? We'll throw a couple of those at you as we roll along this afternoon. I meant this afternoon. 803.
There's one.
Yep. Well, I also slightly messed up one earlier, but we'll have to give myself 2 if we're playing the dollar game. 803-404-6100. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for the men's clinic. Whereas, guys, as we get older, well, things aren't always the same. You know, you might have brain fog. You know, any kind of particular sports talk radio show host that tends to forget things and not always give you the correct information. It's called brain fog. It's called brain fog. It doesn't make my job any easier. But you know what? I can call and make a simple appointment over to the men's clinic. 803-875-MENS. That's right, 803-875-MENS. Maybe brain fog isn't the only issue that you're having currently. Maybe you're gaining weight, but you're working out. You don't understand why. You're doing the same things, but now you're gaining weight. Well, call the men's clinic today and schedule an appointment. 803-875-MENS. For more information, go to their website, themensclinicsc.com. Let me tell you, you are an individual. You're not generic, and that's why the men's clinic, they want to treat you as an individual with a specific regimen to help you get back to your absolute best health. So call the men's clinic, 803-875-MENS, and schedule an appointment today. We got to change the bumper music.
Yes.
Team meeting coming up.
Yeah. Send me your list of songs, and I'll get to work on that.
I'm not going to lie. We're going to go a little more late 90s, early 2000s rap. Prepare accordingly.
Okay. All right. I like that.
When you tune in moving forward. Maybe it might not be this week. We got other things we're trying to handle. One thing we're trying to handle is Rasul Faison watch. Having to be far more alert, but thankfully it's noon and noon to 3 that I have to be far more alert. It's a lot easier to be far more alert this time than it is 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, I could see that. I imagine you don't have to take too many naps in the middle of the day compared to what you probably used to have to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't take naps. There was
so you were just
might have been a lot of
whatever I get at night is what I get.
Yeah, I can't say it's the best way to live, kids, but yeah, that was me. Speaking of Faison watch, Beth from Lamar says maybe we should charter some buses and go there and have a sit-in until they get their act together.
We could try. I don't know how effective it's going to be, but it's worth a shot.
It could affect some of my vacation days if we do that, so I might send y'all on your own. Beth also says best coaching hire Spurrier that led to Beamer. Also, Dawn Staley has helped the entire university.
That is very true. I mean, there's been no coach that's quite literally had more success than she's had, and you've made a sport that, let's be honest, for a long period of time hasn't been all that relevant from the grand scheme of things, perhaps one of the most important in all of the country.
I will say this, and I have no clue, so I'm just going to talk out my rear end for a second, but maybe you'll agree with me. I'm going to assume, let's just go 7 years, 8 years. I'll go back it up 8 years. South Carolina really became a national force, 8 years. I would guess that the total attendance over the last 8 years at Colonial Life Arena higher. Now, mind you, some of it was at Frank McGuire Arena, so totally different numbers.
Sure.
But I will say that the last 8 years, attendance, not on average, but the total number of people that have attended a South Carolina women's game, far, far greater than total number of people who attended a South Carolina women's basketball game anytime prior. Like, I don't mean anytime. I mean total. So to that 2014 through whatever year South Carolina women's basketball began, the last 8 years have brought in more people.
No, 1,000%, no doubt about it. And I think she's talked about it that, before I got here, you couldn't get 1,000 people to go to a South Carolina women's basketball game because, again, the program just wasn't really relevant. Nobody really cared about it. And you bring in a coach that takes it to the top of the mountain. People love winners. And, again, for the past decade plus, you've been a winner.
So let's go through the 4. I'm going to put this on Twitter here, and I'm trying to figure out how to explain it properly via Twitter. But if you were to narrow it down to the 4 best coaching hires, Dawn Staley obviously has to be on that list.
Yep.
Ray Tanner obviously has to be on that list. I'll venture to say, because I've seen the history, Steve Spurrier has to be on that list. And then the 4th, who would we throw on there? And I got it. Some people might throw the former equestrian coach who was so good. That was a really good hire.
Sure.
Earlier on in time, Curtis Fry for the track team, winning in a championship would certainly be a great hire. But I'm trying to think if there's a 4th that I would even start to throw on that list.
In the category of those 3, probably not, at least based on what we know about those coaches right now. Again, that 4th coach could be a current coach at this moment. That, again, the story's not, the book's not done being written on what they're going to do here at Carolina.
That's an interesting concept. Now, Ray Tanner at North Carolina State was doing fairly well.
Yeah.
Okay, so it depends on how you want to judge his previous tenure. I don't think you can just say, well, hiring Dawn Staley was a home run hire. It was kind of like, okay, what can she do?
Yeah.
And not only did she rally the university, she rallied the fan base, as you just mentioned, and then went on to success. Shane Beamer came in at a time that, since I really started paying attention to South Carolina football about 1992 when they joined the SEC, and also I was about 10 that time. So, you can kind of remember things. I still remember being at the South Carolina-Georgia game, the first SEC game South Carolina played. That was a pretty boring game because Georgia just beat them 28-6, and it was just bad. But I say that because, Tyler, I mean, like, Shane Beamer Shane Beamer continues the success.
Yeah. That
little sentence I just read about Dabo Swinney, about essentially being, one of the biggest, swings on a coach. I think you would say the same for Shane Beamer if he has another 5 years of success. I'm not even sure if you need a national championship. Certainly if you do, but the sentence again for Dabo Swinney is his hire remains one of the boldest and best swings a program has ever taken. I think you'd say the same thing for Shane Beamer.
Yeah, definitely so. Because and I think we can't talk about great hires with Carolina football without also mentioning Lou Holtz. Because again, you had a program that wasn't a perennial winner, that he started taking to bowl games, that got it to a certain level. Then Spurrier comes in, and it did take a few years, took it to another level. the Muschamp years kind of took it back down a few pegs, and then Beamer, as of right now, seems to have taken it back up a few pegs that we hope is going to be the consistent success going forward. In 10 years from now, we could say, hey, Beamer was the best hire this program's ever made, depending on what he does over the course of the next decade. But again, through four years so far, he's done more than what Spurrier had done, so there is that kind of comparison. But you would definitely say that, yeah, he's been able to get this program back to a relevance that it was not at under the previous staff, and even in the last 2 years under Spurrier, where the wheels kind of fell off.
Very fair on that. Bobby weighs in. He goes with Joe Morrison. Now,
Okay.
what do you know? Let's play. I'm going to be always intrigued to play this little
Yes.
game. What do you know and remember about Joe Morrison?
I know the story, obviously, and what could have been, obviously, but things were going in the right direction, and that was at 80, 88, 89?
I believe it was 88.
88. So that's kind of a what if more than anything else of if he'd been around longer.
Actually, I think it was 89 because that was
89.
his I want to say that was his last year. Even I'm struggling to go back that far.
And
88 was his final. He passed away in 89.
Early 89. Or maybe it was like right before the season started. Or something
No,
like
it was February 5th,
February,
1989.
okay. And he had the program on a good track, and I think the common belief from a lot of people is like the results of that kind of cratered things for a few years. That again, it took kind of Lou Holtz coming in at the end of the 90s decade there to kind of get things back on track and obviously start winning again and getting back to bowls. So that's always kind of like a man, what he could have done if he lived longer, stayed around for a handful of more years. What could the program could have been then?
Well, I think there's a lot of people, and I would say people that have a better memory of that because 88, well, when Joe Morrison passed away in 89, I was 6 years old. I do remember the news at that point. I was being raised as a Gamecock fan. My father and my mother at the time, or my mother, that was I really remember.
Sure.
Tyler, I don't know if people have like their first sports memory, like your first thing you really remember. Well, I remembered in 1987. It might have been 88 because it was the Gator Bowl, so I don't know when exactly it was played. Probably 87. A young Bill Gunner was 5 years old, and we're getting clobbered. We're getting clobbered by LSU in the bowl game, in the Gator Bowl.
Yeah.
And I remember South Carolina scored a touchdown very late in that game, and my mother, screaming at the TV. Father was sitting calmly, but my mother screaming at the television that they finally scored, and I think yelling at the TV that they should have done that earlier. And she was very knowledgeable. For those that don't know, my grandfather was heavily involved in South Carolina radio broadcasts growing up, Homer Fesperman, and so she wasn't. She knew what she was talking
she knew
about.
what was up.
And but I remember that. And so after that, I kind of always remember Joe Morrison. I remember crying I was 6 or 7,
Sure.
but crying like a baby when he passed away.
Yeah.
And I've got this quote here from Todd Ellis after Steve Spurrier, and he said Coach Spurrier was an icon before coming to South Carolina, but there's a part of the South Carolina community that takes pride in the fact that Coach Morrison was successful and did it here first. He made South Carolina stand out for the first time. He provided an edge. He made it cool to play at Carolina. And I'll say that's the other thing about Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer's doing that right now.
Yeah, it's very much in the same way. And again, I think that's why this year is so important because, again, you come off the heels of a really good season. You're replacing a lot of talent. And if you can back up a 9-win campaign and be right around that, again, 8-9 wins, and maybe be in the conversation for the playoff again, I think a lot of people look at South Carolina and say, okay, this is consistency now. This is what we should expect out of this team each and every year. It's not just kind of, okay, they'll have a occasional good season and then go back to being 5-7 after that.
Yeah. Chris weighs in and says, Joe won with Jim Carlin's boys. Carlin was a great hire. Beth from Lamar comes back in. Morrison was good.
Well,
Black Magic.
I mean, Morrison, in his last 2 years, still won 8 games both of those years. So, because he had the 10-2 season, year number 2 or year number 3 or whatever it was. So okay, fine. If you want to credit that to the previous coach, whatever. But when you win 8 games back-to-back years in your final 2 years, that's your team. Those are your recruits. Those are your guys.
And I guess the only thing about that is it'll always be plagued by the steroid scandal that might have brought about Morrison's firing and changed the direction of South Carolina in 88. 803-404-6100. Come back, wrap up hour number 2. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
Come on. Red and meth didn't jump. La 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 la.
I hope you have listened to this previously. Okay.
Is this more your vibe?
Yeah, man. That's yeah. That's
So, like, what artist are you wanting me to pull for our new rejoiner music when we get to that?
I mean, I'm a 97 to about 05 is like prime
Okay.
music experience. So you can go with a Nelly, you can go with an Usher, you can go with a DMX of what do I want to say? No words, probably.
So I typically do instrumentals.
Yeah, I was going to say
with
instrumentals.
rejoiners.
Thank you. Yes, yeah.
That's kind of my go-to because you never know.
That's right. We played a game.
But that's my rap vibe too. So I think we'll see eye to eye on a lot of that.
Yeah, let's go with those there. A little bit of Dr. Dre and Eminem too. Always
Okay,
a good,
I love
always a
Eminem.
good call. So
Yep.
yeah, we'll stay out of my current phase of the bro country that everybody is in.
Ooh.
When you get kids, man, when you have kids, you
Sure.
got to be careful with what you listen to in the car. There can't be any Migos or Kendrick Lamar. Now they're 13 and 15. They all know all the words. Now.
They're hearing the words now.
Yeah,
So
got it. 803-404-6100. Let's get out to the phone lines. Thomas wants to weigh in this afternoon. Thomas, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Hey, good. Bill, welcome to Normal Hours. Hope you're enjoying sleeping in a little bit.
It's been great.
Quick question for you on Rasul Faison. As someone who has been very much on the periphery of this and keeping up with it, I was wondering if, as we are hoping to get towards a decision here, if you could give myself and hopefully some other listeners a little TLDR summary on what's going on with this, how we got here, and where we hope to go. Appreciate it. I'll take your answer off the air. Thanks, buddy.
I appreciate it. Good to hear from you. And please call in more often with questions. Well, Tyler, should we work forwards to back or?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
All right, let's bring up to speed what we thought would have happened by now. And by that, I mean on May the 7th, Tyler looked this up, Rasul Faison hired the attorney, Darren Heitner. Okay.
Who helped Studi get his eligibility.
And actually, it's helped a lot of players.
If you go through his tweets, it's like every other day, it's like this person's hired Darren Heitner for whatever eligibility case they're trying to get. So this is his thing. He's like the guy for it.
Yeah, and truthfully, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't heard from him in any way, shape, or form since. I don't know if he's backrooming a deal with the NCAA to get something out. I don't know on that.
Yeah, and again, he tweets a lot, but I've not seen any other follow-up specific to Rasul Faison from him. And again, like I said, I checked May 7th. So 2 months ago from Monday was when he was hired. And again, when that happened, we're like, all right, here we go. The ball's rolling now. We're going to get this decision soon. And here we are 2 months later, and we still don't know.
And so that started kind of, I believe that started when I was down in Florence for the Gamecock Club. They had the little Gamecock Club golf tournament down there. Mm-hmm. And I believe that was the first time we heard Shane Beamer kind of start to like lose his cool a little bit with the situation. I want to say it was within a 5-day window of that.
Because not everybody has to lawyer up when it comes to these eligibility cases. You submit the paperwork, NCAA says yes or no, and you go on from there. But yeah, the fact that it had to get to that point, and I think that same day he had one of those welcome home events and was asked about it. And yeah, that's where the frustration started to tick up a little bit. Like, hey, we've had to get to this point. Rasul Faison's had to go out there and get this guy because we just don't know any other option right now.
So then to work backwards from that, Faison commits in January. At the time of his commitment, I don't think we knew there was eligibility issues.
No, and again, when guys come in for the portal, you're just like, okay, I assume they have an extra year. And given the heels of the Pavia ruling, which I believe was in late December, we're like, oh, well, he definitely fits into that, right? Because he played 2 years, at least a year of JUCO football. So we're like, oh, it's going to be no problem because everybody kind of fell into the umbrella of this ruling that we thought wasn't going to be a problem. But again, 7 months later.
So here's the question. I can't tell you what the question becomes. In 2019, Faison enrolled at Marshall.
Yep.
Did not play football. He was gray shirted. So I'll be dead honest, gray shirt. I don't know if that meant
so
he didn't enroll that year.
You're not on the team essentially. Like
you're not supposed to be. I think at the university.
Yeah, it's almost like they kind of store you away.
Yeah.
Right. Like all right.
For those that don't remember, Coach Simpson.
Yeah.
This is exactly
that kind of thing. Like all right, we're anticipating you to be here next year, but you're not scholarship. You're not on the team. Again, sometimes you're not even at the university for that year. So yeah, that shouldn't count because you weren't on the team.
And so he leaves there, and in 2020 he enrolls, and this is important, in online classes at Lackawanna College in Scranton, PA. Didn't play football.
Nope.
And again, when it says online classes, to me, that doesn't indicate that he was actually attending the school.
Probably wasn't in the state.
So where exactly did he begin his college career? Well, he attended Snow College, a junior college in Utah. Did not appear in any games. So he has technically been in college for 3 years, has not played a college football game.
Right.
By my reading it, had not been at a university for 2 years. I don't know what exactly happened at Marshall. So take him to what is technically now 2022. He has technically been at college for 3 years. 2022, it lists him on the Gamecock website as a redshirt junior. He played that year. So this is the first time he starts playing.
Yep.
He rushed 88 times for 355 yards. That was in 2022. So he transfers from Snow College to Utah State.
Yep.
Where he plays in all 13 games with plays in all 13 games with 3 starts, and then in 2024 last year played at Utah State and has since transferred. Technically, in college, this would be his 7th year. He's only played football for 3 years.
Seems simple, but unfortunately with the NCAA, nothing's ever simple.
Mathing. Oof, boy, speaking of high school and college, math not good. I don't know how to read military time. I mean, I know how to read it now. 2 days in, I figured it out. So I don't know. Do I say the hour 1400? 1400 hour?
1,400 hours.
1400 hours. All right. Or
do you want me to like start quizzing you?
no, I'm learning. I didn't know how to.
1400 is good.
I didn't know how to properly say. Like, do you say hour 1400?
Yeah, it's 1,400 hours.
1400
Just
hours.
1400.
Okay.
Or yeah, that works too. Like 2:30, 14:30.
Okay.
Like you don't have, and there's again, there's no AM PM distinction.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, the reason I say that is because obviously when I've been on radio, I've always been like, all right. In this case, I'd be like, all right, 8 a.m. on your Wednesday morning. Well, now, and I kind of want to play with that to become more knowledgeable. But yes, if you're operating non-military time, 2:01 p.m.
I've worked in both radio and public safety the past decade. All operate on military time. I'm pretty used to it at this point.
All right, so 1400.
1,400. You can just leave it at 1,400.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right. So welcome back in hour number 3. That's what's important, and it's 2 o'clock on your Wednesday afternoon. Hope you are doing well, rolling through the afternoon. We are on so Preston and I did have this debate. I consider tomorrow at 3 o'clock kind of the end of my week.
Okay.
All right. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not here on Monday. It just means by Monday, by Friday, I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah, the hump day thing, I know is a big thing with Preston.
Yeah, because I look at it, now it used to be basically for me, get done at 9 o'clock on Wednesday a.m., and then I was like, all right, Thursday's always a fun show, an easy show. Friday's a really fun show and an easy show. Just get through the first 3 days.
Yeah. Depends on the time of year. A little trickier now because we are, we're reaching a little bit further and wider for content and things to talk about. So there's no easy days this time of year. But, yeah, when football season gets here, I feel like Thursday and Friday are the funnest day. Like, Monday's fun because you're reacting to whatever happened. Thursday and Friday, it's the anticipation of what's coming. Like, yeah, those are the funnest days of the week.
Very true on Monday in this time slot.
Yes.
Monday at 6 a.m. was always a little bit of we got to get going here. We got to find that energy.
Yeah. I guess also depending on what happens over the weekend too. So
exactly.
Yeah, it varies, but
especially during the summer.
12 to 3 is that happy medium. You'll figure that out.
Yeah, we're rolling along. Hope you're enjoying what we've put out there so far in the first 3 days. The first 8 hours of the all-new halftime show is we've actually had a lot to talk about this week. We were watching yesterday for the attendees for South Carolina from SEC Media Days. Today we've been on Rasul Faison watch, and at least from J.C. Sherbert of thebigspur.com, not expecting the NCAA to put anything out there this afternoon according to his eligibility. And we'll start with that before we go to another Media Days that's taking place. But yes, it's okay. It's fine to be upset and for us to throw rotten tomatoes at the front door of the NCAA, and that should be happening. I brought it up at the beginning of the beginning of the show. And the more this kind of goes deeper, and it kind of ties into what we talked about yesterday, Tyler, Shane Beamer's not going to be fired with a bad year this year.
No.
He's earned that equity.
Yeah, he could have a 2-10 season like Florida State had last year. Wouldn't be fun, obviously, but yeah, I'd still say he's definitely still your coach in 2026.
However, and we talked about this yesterday, there is some pressure on Shane Beamer. That window with a quarterback that may not be here next year, really, really honestly, we've all learned a roster that may not be here. You don't know what's going to happen in an offseason where teams can just come in and gut your roster. You got to get Dylan Stewart to recommit.
You do
next year. Fred Johnson, who they're talking about at linebacker, to maybe step up and be a big part. You got to get him to recommit. You got to get Judge Collier. I think Collier actually may have not out of eligibility, but I think would be his third year out of high. I could be wrong on that.
He'd be a third year out, so if he was good enough, he could go pro if he wanted to.
Same with Jalen Kilgore.
Yeah.
So my point is your roster now is entirely built year to year.
Sure.
And with that being said, you lost some defensive pieces. This is still a roster that could get you to 9 or 10 victories, and you've got to capitalize on that.
And you've put a lot of resources towards making this roster what it is. And yes, there's a lot of guys that haven't necessarily proven themselves at the college level, but we have high expectations for Gabriel Brownlow-Dinley coming in from A&M as a former 5-star and kind of being one of the anchors on the interior of the defensive line. So again, you don't have the known talent that you had. And even last year, we didn't have known talent necessarily with guys like Kennard and Demetrius Knight. They were good players at their prior stops at, Charlotte and Georgia Tech, but we didn't see them having what the kind of seasons they would have and go on to be drafted in the way that they were. So your kind of hope is that you're going to be able to do the same thing with a lot of these guys that we don't know a lot about going into this season. And again, kind of become that school where it's like, okay, no matter who leaves, you're just going to replace them with good caliber talent and keep the train rolling. But again, everybody has a window. And some teams like Alabama, that window can be 15 years long where they're always in contention for national championships. Some of them, like a previous version of LSU, it's short a window of 2 to 3 years. And you have the talent. You got to capitalize, which Ed Orgeron did back in 2019. And Beamer and South Carolina feel like they're in the middle of that right now, more than they've ever been. Even, when Rattler was here a couple of seasons ago and you had talent like that went on to play in the NFL, like this is the best version that we've seen of this program. Go out there and be able to at least back up what you did last season.
Yeah, and that's why, again, I don't know if your window is 15 years. Well, for a program like South Carolina, I think your window is and it's just year to year to year.
Sure.
And the reason I'm mentioning this is because Rasul Faison is expected to be the starter.
Yes.
This isn't just some case of, well, we're hoping to get this guy in, we're hoping to get that guy in. This is right now huge for Lenore Sellers to be the Lenore Sellers that you need him to be.
Sure.
You need a running game. Mm-hmm. You have to have a running game this year. And who knows? Maybe Jarwan Howell steps up. Maybe Isaiah Auguste. Maybe he steps up. We don't know that the other guys can't do it.
Sure.
We don't know that they can do it. And that's a scary thought right now.
Yeah, if this eligibility stuff was about Oscar Attaway and we knew Faison was here and he was locked in, we were good to go, we wouldn't be making as big a deal about it. It'd be a story like, hey, we'll see if he's going to be eligible, but like we're not sitting on pins and needles waiting for the NCAA ruling because while he is going to play a role in this offense, he's not going to play as big of a role as Faison seemingly is going to if he does get his eligibility. Because, again, that's your de facto RB1. And if you don't have him, it's like, okay, well, can Oscar Attaway handle that kind of load? Is it just going to be we're going to keep throwing it towards these guys and see who stands out as time goes along? Like, you have more questions than answers if Faison's not eligible.
And look, I mean, if they rule him ineligible and Attaway or how. By the way, for those that haven't listened to me, I'm a big Jarwan Howell fan. Mm-hmm. I've heard enough about him.
You've seen those flashes.
Yeah.
Like you see that potential there.
But the reason this is so big is because of the fact that, again, you're talking about getting a piece to your offense that does not stress your quarterback. Mm-hmm. And you can't have, I don't think you can have, Lenore Sellers running it 22 times a game to offset whatever running back production you lost.
Yeah, no, that will wear on you very quickly as the season goes along. Again, that Old Dominion game, we were concerned with the amount of carries he had in that game. Like, hey, this isn't sustainable. Certainly not going to be the case this year either. But, again, if you get in a situation where you don't have any other choice, then maybe what you have to do. And, again, all this can be alleviated if the NCAA just gives you a thumbs up, whenever that may be. Well, again, at this point, we just don't know.
I'll go back and read this text from an anonymous texter. It says, when Morrison arrived, now talking about going back to Joe Morrison, he recovered 2 players who left Carlin, Thomas Dendy and Chris Corley at tight end. Carlin also managed to lose a game they should not have each and every year. He gives a couple examples. And then the reason I read this is the texter goes back to our conversation yesterday. Says there was a discussion of worst South Carolina hire. No doubt, Steve Newton.
Okay.
You want a fun read?
Sure.
Do a little dive into Steve Newton one day when you
I'll do that.
when you have time. Speaking of media days, the Big 12 is they're going crazy over there. And Brett Yormark, he's putting all his cards on the table. He said that the Big 12 will be the deepest football conference this coming season. Producer Ed, let's hear from Brett Yormark on the Big 12.
Every school in our league has committed to providing the highest level of benefits to our student athletes. And once again, I believe we will be the deepest football conference in America. No league offers the competitive balance that we do. Last season, the Big 12 led the nation in fourth quarter lead changes and go-ahead scores in the final minute of conference games. And this year, our star power, especially at quarterback, will be on full display. The Big 12 returns 9 starting quarterbacks who threw for over 2,400 yards last season. The rest of the Power 4 combined, just 11. We also boast one of the nation's top coaching lineups, from Hall of Famers to rising stars. I fully expect the Big 12 to earn multiple college football playoff bids this year and to show once again that we can compete with anyone.
Well, that's a strong clip that we will revisit come December.
Yeah, and look, Yormark's not afraid to throw things out there to try and push people's buttons.
By the way, I like him.
I do like him a lot.
I like him as a
he's bold.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to speak, and I do appreciate that about him. I do think there's a difference between being deep and being like the best, because I agree. Like, there were 7 teams basically in the mix to go to the conference championship in like the last 2 weeks of the season last year. So it was very wide open, and I fully expect that to be the case once again this year. But I don't look, even like a Texas Tech that has dominated the NIL space this offseason, I don't look at the Big 12 and say, yep, the national champion's coming from this conference. I don't look at the Big 12 and say a team in the semifinals is going to come from this conference. Like, within the conference, the balance is very close and everybody's very competitive, but I don't think that translates to being better than whoever the SEC or the Big 10 spit out as their best teams.
So I think there's a difference. Competitive and best.
Yes.
You give me those stats about, because that's good. Maybe you got a bunch of mids out there. Maybe you got a bunch of teams that are.
It's a fun conference to watch.
I'll give them this. They're not the SEC. They're not the Big 10. They're also not the ACC. They're above the ACC.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would say top to bottom in terms of quality teams. The Big 12 has more. Again, does that mean they're going to go deep in the playoff? No. And look, Arizona State darn well should have won that game against Texas last year.
Yeah.
The non-targeting call, all that kind of stuff, Texas making the miracle 4th down, like, for all intents and purposes, Arizona State should have won that game and been in the semifinals.
I'm good with that.
But I still didn't see them as like, wow, this team can win the national championship.
Well, to go back to that point, Arizona State is a team, quite honestly, very similar. If you never went back and looked at Arizona State, they are very, very similar to South Carolina last year in terms of a team that got hot really late and really all of a sudden kind of turned it on in terms of what they were doing. Now, by the way, Arizona State was good last year, but they were, if you followed them, they were playing their best football in November. They knocked off number 16 Kansas State. They knocked off, that was at Kansas State. They knocked off BYU.
Yep.
They won the Iowa State, thumped Iowa State.
Yep.
Absolutely drilled.
They were on a heater the back half of the season.
I'm not saying that South Carolina was better than them, but what I am saying is that at the end of the season, I mean, remember, this is a team. I don't know if people remember this, but Kenny Dillingham, after they lost to Cincinnati by 10.
Yep.
How many field goals did they miss? 5, I think.
He said we're going to have open tryouts.
Yeah. He goes and rips his team.
By the way, I like Kenny Dillingham a lot.
And he goes and rips his team and basically says, hey, on Monday, any Arizona State, I think he said students, but it was almost he was opening it to any 45-year-old that would sit in the stands and yell at him.
Sure.
But he was honest. And when they lost that game, they were 5-2 on the season. They weren't great.
Yeah.
They weren't great. And then all of a sudden, they just go on this heater. They smoke Oklahoma State. By the way, they barely win against Central Florida. They knock off number 16 Kansas State, knock off number 14 BYU, hammer Arizona 49-7, hammer Iowa State. And to your point, they're sitting there with in the final minutes with a chance to knock off, well, they go to overtime, but in the final minutes to knock off Texas.
Yep.
So Sam Levitt came together. Cam Scattaboo all of a sudden got it going very well. I mean, this was a team we go, well, South Carolina was losing to, again, here's my point. People go, well, South Carolina was losing to Old Dominion with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. On Thursday, September the 12th, game 3, they had to pull off a late comeback to knock off Texas State 31-28.
Yep. Yeah. Again, it is all about how you're playing at the end of the year. And Arizona State struck while the iron's hot at the very end of the year. And again, darn near got themselves to the semifinals. But again, I still don't view them as a national championship caliber team. And I don't look at anybody in the Big 12 as many returning quarterbacks, as Brett Yormark noted there, as anybody that's going to go win the Heisman Trophy or lead their team to the national championship game.
When we come back, we'll stay national a little bit. Unfortunately, this also doesn't always. It's not always relative to South Carolina men's basketball. But the NCAA men's tournament, expanding. Keep it as is. Add more teams, and let's all be merrier. We'll talk about it when we return. You're listening to the Halftime Show. 220. That's my goal for the rest of this month, is to just be able to look at it and be like, got it. I know the time now.
It'll come. Don't
Small
worry.
goals, baby steps.
Don't worry.
803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. Tyler, your favorite sports month, your favorite sports week. How do you want to narrow this down?
All right. Out of the entire year?
Of the entire year. You got 12
man.
months to choose from, last I checked.
So we're doing month.
I want to start with that month.
All
Your
right.
favorite sports month of the year?
Probably October.
Oh?
I mean, you're in the midst of the thick of college and pro football season. MLB postseason's going on.
Okay.
Like, there's just a lot of content happening. And again, conference play in college football, like that's where it's really fun.
Okay, I'll trade you for November. I'm going to take November.
Okay, November.
College basketball gets going.
November's a good month, too.
I like college basketball as a whole, and college basketball kind of getting underway there drives me a little bit more than MLB postseason. So, but I say that number 2 on my list is March.
Okay.
Tournaments.
Sure.
But yeah, you're lacking, obviously, no NFL.
Yeah.
Combine doesn't get me all fired up.
Don't like watching guys run in their underwear.
It doesn't, surprisingly. Major League Baseball is on the verge of kicking off, but it kicks off usually about the last week of March.
College baseball can be fun then if your team's good.
If your team's good.
Yeah, because you're starting conference play halfway through.
If I'm not as much an NBA geek to put that up there. So anyway, I go November. However, maybe the best sporting event of all year is the month of March with the NCAA tournament. And if we're being honest about it, if I'm being honest, I don't like the idea of expansion here. I feel like you're messing with a tradition.
Yeah, I'm not an expansionist myself either. And again, this isn't the first time these conversations have come up over the years, but if there were ever going to be a time to expand, it seems like it will be now. And they seem very close to maybe doing that.
So there's an article out that you can check out by Matt Norlander, CBSSports.com. And to me, CBS Sports is the home of college basketball. But it's an article about expansion. And, okay, that's not an actual. I was like, oh, where did this come from? But Matt Norlander has been covering this very closely. As a matter of fact, he's got a tweet out 4 hours ago. It says a 94-6 vote against expansion on a poll from someone who has devoted college basketball following. And that would be Rob Douster, who also does a really good job. But and let me finish this Matt Norlander tweet. He says, let's be crystal clear on this. If the NCAA tournament is increased, it'll be done against the will of the people who consume and cherish it the most.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So what do we make of this? Because I've talked with a lot of South Carolina coaches. And look, South Carolina this is what it is. It just is what they've not been a part of NCAA tournament. Last year, Preston and I jumped on in January. You could sense something building. We're like, you better enjoy this now.
And listen, last year, and again, I covered the Georgia basketball program for several years. That was the first time I ever got to cover a men's basketball program going to the tournament. And that was a lot of fun. And again, it didn't end the way you wanted it to by getting, beat by Oregon and one of your former players in Jermaine Kusnar. But still, leading up to it was a lot of fun. And I hope we can replicate that going forward. But, like when you have a team that's relevant in the tournament discussion, because I guess every single week, everything else mattered. Because when you're watching South Carolina, you say, okay, now we need Tennessee or Auburn to do this, lose this game, win this game. You're watching bracketology. Hey, here's what they project them right now. Here's what this win means. Here's your quad 1, quad 4. All these kind of things matter when you're relevant in college basketball.
Yeah, I'll admit, Preston and I jumped all over it last year, and as we talked about a little bit while ago with football, your roster is basically year to year.
Yes.
You have no clue what's going to happen. And with all that in mind, and I'm a bracketology nerd. I'm a bracketology geek, especially when South Carolina is involved in it. And I'm looking going, ooh, where might we get sent? Who are we matching up with? Does that have to do with numbers? No. But what matters is I've grown up the majority of my life. Real quick math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times in 43 years. Mm-hmm. And one of those 6 was one of the most incredible runs that I've ever seen in my life. And something that, by the way, I think is crazier that I witnessed than South Carolina winning national championships in anything. Mm-hmm. Because I had never seen success from South Carolina basketball. I'd seen them get to the tournament and then promptly blow it in game in the opening round. But with all that being said, I'm familiar with the NCAA tournament. I would hate to see this thing expanded out past 68.
Yeah, and I think the majority of people would, because again, I think like 64 and 68 when you count the playing games has worked fine. It's since 2011 when they added the 4 extra teams. Everybody's good with it. You have the couple of playing games, kind of get you ready for it, and then things really get rolling on that Thursday when the actual bracket starts taking place. But despite our cries and how much we may beg and plead for them not to do it, I feel like they're going to, because, again, that just kind of seems to be the way everything's trending.
Well, coaches want it, and I do get it. Again, I've talked to certain coaches that have come through South Carolina, and they're like, and look, the year that Frank Martin's team got I don't want to say prank text message, but you know about that story?
I've heard about this, yes.
Yeah, where they meant to send the text message to Southern Cal, but there was a confusion. But anyway, with that being said, I get it, because there were some teams of South Carolina's that would have gone to the NCAA tournament under Frank Martin. Maybe we view him differently. Maybe we view it as an expanded tournament. But there are coaches that are like, hey, look, it's really, really hard to get one of those at-large bids after you let in the first 32.
Yeah, and I mean, with the SEC, who already got 14 of their teams in this year, it's like, and South Carolina and LSU were so bad, they weren't going to suddenly get in if the tournament was expanded to 76 or something like that. But are you looking at some of these power conferences trying to get literally everybody in every single year? Like, I think that's kind of the goal here, because, that doesn't suddenly mean that the second-place team in the Atlantic Sun's going to get in. No, it's going to be a Vanderbilt team that went, 2 games under 500 in conference play or something like that. Like, those are the teams that we're talking about getting in an expanded field, which I'm imagining they would just add to the play-in. Like, the proper bracket would still be 64 teams, but now instead of 4 teams playing their way in, you're having like 12 or something like that.
Yeah, and so obviously that would be 6 extra. Or no, it would be actually technically
you'd have to have a bracket outside of the bracket of who, or if you're doing these playing games now, instead of like the 11 or 16, okay, now like the 12, the 14, you're having multiple seeds having to play their way in.
Yeah, and by the way, that's one thing I don't like either. That I have a real gripe with the NCAA tournament. You want to look at something? How about we make the last 4 teams in the tournament, or excuse me, let's see, it's 2, 4, 6, 8. Do the 16 seeds who had to win their way in, all 4, who had to win their way in through conference, you can't punish them by winning their tournament and making them play in the play-in game.
I completely agree. If you're an automatic qualifier, you should not have to play your way through Dayton to get in. Leave that up to all the at-large bids, the Vanderbilts, the Washingtons, the Syracuses, all those teams that weren't good enough initially to make the 6-14 field. You have to play your way in.
So I can slightly get on board with this if the 8 extra is going to either be 72 or 76. But whatever happens, they're probably going to end up at 100. And I'm not being serious, but think about it. We're 24 away. They'll be over 100 by 2035.
Yeah, 96 is a number that gets thrown out there a lot, which, again, if we get to that number, then you're talking about a whole different type of scenario. But yeah, tournaments are getting bigger. They're not getting smaller. And, again, it's been talked about for a while, but it seems like we're as close as ever to expanding this thing out. Because at the end of the day, it matters about money. Because as mad as we might be that the field is expanding and you're diluting the product, we're still going to watch the games because, hey, guess what? Now instead of, 2 games to watch for the play-in, you got 4 or 6 or 8 or however many you're going to have.
I don't know if people will watch that because it feels, one, it's tradition, and one, it's like I was reading in this Matt Norlander article, he's got a point, like, I at least, I can't speak because they started playing these play-in games a long time ago.
Yeah.
Get your brackets in by Wednesday, 11:59, or Thursday morning by 11:59, whatever bracket you use. We're used to that, so I don't know what the exact viewing numbers are year to year on these playing games. Now, I do know, I say exact year because this past year had the most watched play-in game ever.
Yeah,
you know who that was? Most watched play-in game ever.
I'm trying to remember what the playing games were. One was Alabama State, right?
No, this was a team trying to play their way in. It would be North Carolina.
That's right. I forgot about that.
It would be North Carolina. North Carolina was the highest rated play game. Well, why was North Carolina the highest rated play in?
Because they're a big brand.
They're a big brand, and that fan base is massive, whether they live in North Carolina or not. And probably Eric Church also probably has some kind of huge event.
You're talking about these other schools that would be entering in when they 76-team field in extra playing games. There's your viewership. There's your money. There's your revenue to sell ads, and that's why this, I think, is probably going to happen.
803-404-6100. Come back. We'll get into the college football playoff. That field. What feels right on that? Because guess where we're probably going with that? You're listening to the Halftime Show. 2:35 as we roll along on your Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're having a great day. Remember, when you go to leave your office or wherever, drive safely, get home to the cats, the dogs, and all the significant loved ones at your house. But Tyler and I will get you through here about another 25 more minutes and then turn it over to Jay and Terry, who hopefully will put in the effort and the work that we have following Rasul Faison Watch 2025.
Well, now they get the easy part of just saying, oh, well, nothing's going to happen today. They're not having to refresh Twitter constantly like we've been doing today.
So we'll continue to monitor. That may be at the top of our list of monitoring tomorrow or coming on and being at the top of our list to talk about. 803-404-6100. All right. So I think this is a personality thing, right?
Yep.
I want you to explain to me why my personality, why my mindset is the way it is. A lot of people say, you're always just crazy and you just don't ever make common sense. Why do I enjoy the FCS playoff, especially the very end of it, but I don't like the idea of expanding the FBS playoff to 16 or 24?
Probably because that's the way it's been done for a long time. Like, the FCS has never had a bowl system. The FCS, every now and then you'll get some controversy, but like for the most part, it's pretty straightforward if you know who's going to be in, and there isn't as much debate on who should be in their 24-team field as we've had in the past couple of years, or last year specifically with 12-team field. It's almost kind of like going back to our conversation yesterday about naming rights when it comes to stadiums. You know, if T-Mobile took over Williams-Brice Stadium, people would be up in arms about it. But
Probably so.
Colonial Life Arena has always been Colonial Life Arena, and nobody's really cared because that's been the name that it's always been. I think when we have an idea and get used to things, it's a lot harder to change them, especially when you talk about, like, playoff formats and things like that, because we get used to one thing and then it changes again. It's like, well, hey, what was wrong with the thing we had before?
How did you like the 12-team playoff this past year? What was your, from game one to the Ohio State Notre Dame game, what was your kind of take on it?
I was fine with it. I mean, I enjoyed it because, again, it was more football that mattered in the months of December and January. I was never an expansionist. I thought 4 was fine. I'm a firm believer in making the regular season as important as possible, and a 4-team playoff still meant you had to be either undefeated or be a one-loss team, and usually win your conference championship if you want to play at the national championship. Now we've expanded it out to where you have mulligans. Again, Ohio State in a otherwise 4-team playoff would have never had a chance because they lost the second game and didn't get to play for their conference championship. So you gave a team like that we knew was good that just happened to stumble against a mediocre Michigan team another chance, and guess what? They ran the table and won the entire thing. Okay,
well, and remember, they lost Oregon, too.
But that was controversy and kind of weird. Yeah. So, they got a second chance at life in the playoff and ran the table and won the thing. So, again, did I think they were probably the best team in the country? Probably. But I was more in the camp of, like, I'm just enjoying it because we get more games. And, yeah, most of those games ended up being kind of lopsided anyway. But I was fine with it. Again, I was fine with 4-team, and it would have been okay if they never expanded past that, but I take it for what it is.
I wanted 8 because I felt like you kept your conference champions, and then finding the next 4 best teams would have made it entertaining. 12, look, since we, South Carolina, got to be involved in the controversy, maybe I disliked it a little bit more. Maybe if South Carolina had been closer to 25 and we were like, we know we're not in.
Sure.
Maybe I would have cared a little bit less. I will say this. I thought the opening weekend was really cool. Now, as you mentioned, we got bad games.
Mostly.
But I was excited about a night playoff game between Indiana and Notre Dame. I was really excited about seeing Happy Valley when it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
Like, not, it's cold in November when it's, like, freezing cold. I loved Tennessee at Ohio State, thinking that was going to be a good game. Totally wasn't. But I'll admit, as we got to New Year's, and I don't know if it was just matchups that didn't appeal to me, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas, Arizona State, Texas. Well, even on opening weekend, Texas, Clemson was fun because we had a local team.
And that game was kind of competitive for a minute there.
Yeah, concerningly competitive. But, yeah, to that point, I don't know, somewhere along New Year's Day, I got turned off by it.
Sure.
There was something that I didn't quite enjoy as much. And by the time we got to Ohio State and Notre Dame, I don't know if it was because of the teams, but I mean, that's a really intriguing matchup.
It is.
By the time we got to the teams, I was just like, whatever.
Well, I remember this. There was a lot of people that day of the national championship like, oh, yeah, I forgot it was tonight.
Yeah.
Because, like, we've gotten so accustomed to, in the BCS era, okay, you had your BCS bowl games around New Year's, and then a couple days later, national championship. So it was all kind of tightly packed together. And even in the 14 playoff, all right, semifinal games on New Year's Day, and then roughly 8 to 10 days later, you had the national championship. Now it's like, okay, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, semifinals. Another 10 days after that, or it's quarterfinals. Another 10 days after that, semifinals that are now on Thursday and Friday, which is kind of weird. Then another 10 days after that, national championship. So, and football is a volume sport. The more of it stacked on top of each other, the better. So as we get longer and longer into the month of January, and it gets more and more strung out, I think the hype around it dies down. Now, okay, if, Alabama was playing Ohio State or something along those lines, we had more of a local SEC connection to it, maybe there's more buzz. But I think the Ohio State Notre Dame turned a lot of people off from the SEC angle of it because, all right, if the SEC is not playing in it, maybe you don't care as much. But I do think, and the fact that it's on a Monday too doesn't help. I've always been pro Saturday night. If we can ever get there, please, let's do that. It's because football's Saturday sport, but I know the NFL will never allow that to happen, but I can dream, I guess. But I think all those kind of factors bake into why there wasn't as much excitement around it being as late as it was. And I think in a couple years, we're going to be playing on like January 25th, which is crazy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because this is I want to go back to the NCAA basketball tournament. I think Final Four weekend is actually anticlimactic. It's almost like I get to the Final Four after a great, basically 3-week run, and I'm like, okay. If I catch it, I catch it. If I don't, I don't. Like,
you're more excited for the opening round than you are
the first 2 rounds in particular.
Yes, those first couple of days because it's chaos, right? Wall to wall, upsets galore, and you're following the storylines of Cinderella teams and all that. And you get to the end, and you get good basketball usually, especially if like higher seeds are still left standing. Houston and Duke, and again, Auburn and Florida winning the entire thing. Like, you had good teams in the very end, but like the memorable moments of March Madness come from the opening 2 rounds, unless you have like a crazy last second shot, not necessarily what happens in the national championship.
Who was it that hit the shot for Gonzaga a couple years ago? Why am I blanking on it? I don't even know where he plays in the NBA now.
I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
See, and that's, you do have moments in the Final Four, but I'll give you an example. I always do this. Well, you just did. You just nailed it.
Yeah.
But name who was in the Final Four 2 years ago.
FAU, UConn, was San Diego State there? I'm blanking on the fourth.
See, I feel like that's 3 years. No, because it was
that 3 years ago?
That was 3 years ago. Miami, FAU, Auburn.
That's right.
And UConn.
Yep.
Or maybe San Diego State. See, the point is like, I feel like we remember moments in the NCAA tournament.
Sure.
And what year that happened, as opposed to the Final Four. I wonder if this is what becomes of the college football playoff.
And that's the thing, is I don't think we've quite established the identity of what exactly the expanded playoff is and where the excitement is supposed to come from, because I think a lot of people looked at it and said, okay, blowouts in the first round, whatever. But when you get to the second round, when you get to the bowl games and you get to Ohio State and Oregon in the Rose Bowl, Georgia and Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, that's where the game's going to get good.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Georgia-Notre Dame game was kind of competitive, but you still felt like Notre Dame controlled it for the most part, and Ohio State just blew the doors off Oregon. You know what I mean? And again, the Peach Bowl was fun between Texas and Arizona State, but it wasn't across the board.
Right.
You kind of need that one round that you know is going to be good across the board to, I think, establish the identity of what the 12-team playoff is.
So keep it at 12? Which, is like unless the committee is just having to drive through Columbia and be like, they made good points.
It's not gonna shrink. So my hope of like going back to 4 is not going to happen. So I'm like, 12 is fine. We're going to go to 16. I've kind of accepted that, and if it stays at that, okay, sure, why not?
803-404-6100. We'll come back. We will wrap up your Wednesday edition of the Halftime Show.
Yeah, they get on Hugh Freeze a little bit. But
They do, yeah.
he's supposed to play 20 times in the last 35 days or something. I don't know what it was.
Kentucky fans are pointing out that their coach doesn't play golf, so.
Kentucky?
Yeah.
Well, they don't have a lot of wins to brag about right now. Yeah, it's immaterial. If you're losing, they'll find something you should be doing better.
Exactly.
Spurrier, by the way, I didn't know this until we discussed this yesterday. It just, you know how old Steve Spurrier is?
Oh, he's got to be in his upper 80s now, right?
Well, no. Now you're going a little bit too far, but he's 80.
He's 80. Okay,
He sounds good for 80.
He was at the game 2 years ago now, I guess, where they honored one of his teams on the field, and he was up in the press box. I turned around, and he was standing next to me, and he's definitely, a little feebler than he once was. So he's not getting around quite as easily as he once did, and that was kind of when it hit me. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's up there a little bit now.
Yeah, still, it doesn't look like he's aged all that bad. But I went back and the other day we were talking about him. I went to go look at something. I was like, wow, he's 80.
Yep.
But the mind is still there.
Oh, listen. Anytime he can take a shot at somebody, especially an old SEC foe, he takes that opportunity. And that just the Kentucky. They ain't got one too many wins to fall back on.
Yeah, he's like complaining about something. See, I saw something the other day that like Kentucky fans were complaining about Mark Stoops playing too much golf.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he got it backwards or something.
And he is right though about Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze has been playing a lot of golf this month while his recruiting has gone downhill.
They are 86th and 87th, I think, respectively, in On3 and 24/7's recruiting rankings, while Georgia and Alabama are just snatching up 4 and 5 stars left and right. And again, when you are under 500 in 2 years, you're not recruiting well. Yeah, at a place like Auburn, people are going to be upset by that.
Again, with Hugh Freeze, we did that yesterday in terms of like hot. I don't know if it's hot seat rankings or teams that have the most.
It's pretty hot. It's pretty hot right now.
His record, Hugh Freeze, is same as Brian Harsin through 2 years.
Now we talk about schools that can find money to buy somebody out if they need to. Auburn's one of those places. They got rid of Harsin pretty quickly. They're still paying him, by the way. They just finished paying off Gus, so they're still paying off Harsin a couple mil every single year. Freeze's buyout, I think I did the math, it's about $15 million this year. If they fired him at the end of the year, they'd find a way. If they really wanted to get rid of him, they would. They call up Tim Cook at Apple, be like, hey man, we need to fire the football coach. Can you write us a check? Like, they'll find a way to make it happen.
But back to this, Steve Spurrier, it feels like he's being a little more vocal. It feels like even though he's 80, he's starting to miss the limelight a little bit because, a couple weeks ago, took some shots at Arch Manning.
Yep.
Now and Steve Sarkisian for that matter. Now kind of picking on Kentucky and maybe a slight little snide remark there about Hugh Freeze.
And we debated this earlier with Wes and Chris. His zingers, do you think they're pre-planned or they just happen naturally?
Yeah, I think they happen naturally. I was going to go, I think they're slightly pre-planned, but I'm going to go naturally because I hate to say it, like this one, while funny, I'm not 100% sure how accurate it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of, in the law, he's kind of like, well, they ain't got nothing to fall back on, so we just yell at the coach. I'm like, well, there's a lot of reasons to fall back on.
And look, Kentucky fans are not pleased with Mark Stoops right now. Like, and ever since the whole, flirting with A&M thing happened, they've been pretty against Stoops, and he hasn't done a lot since then to warrant any good graces.
Well, I think it all started when he decided to challenge John Calipari a little bit.
That also didn't help.
Kentucky fans weren't real thrilled with John Calipari.
Hey, bud, you know what kind of school we are, right? Like, you win 7 games and get us to a bowl, and you're fine, but don't poke the bear that is the giant of the basketball program.
It was interesting. If people remember that, it was interesting because John Calipari had lost a lot of fan support. We're not pleased with him. And so Mark Stoops made a few comments, and the next thing you know, fans are like, no, this is our guy. We're glad you're doing something, but that's our guy, and you better win.
It's very much like, and I'll focus this into my love for wrestling. Wrestling fans love to complain about wrestling, right? I hate that they're doing this, hate they're doing that. But when somebody from the outside says, wrestling's stupid, they're all like, hey, man, you can't say that. Like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, Stoops felt a little too confident when he saw people were kind of going against Calipari. And he's like, yeah, maybe we need a little bit more money to LA. Hey, man, stay in your lane. Stay back. We're a basketball school.
They got very fired up. And honestly, if Stoops is smart, he wanders down the athletic department hallway and peeks into Mark Pope's office and is like, here's a mini muffin basket.
Yeah.
I'm here to support you. I'm going to need you to win a few more games
Yeah.
next year so that people aren't focusing on me.
Exactly, because again, they're getting a little testy, and his buyout's still insane. He's in the top 10 of highest paid coaches in football, and it's not warranted at all. He's got a phenomenal gig there, and if they fired him, he'd be set for life, basically. And you still kind of wonder what A&M saw in him to even flirt with the idea of hiring him a couple seasons ago. But yeah, things not great up there in Lexington, and I'm sure they're not pleased with however much golf he's playing right now either.
Well, why was Texas A&M maybe interested in him? I think they saw a guy. They'd come off of Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah.
Flashy, kind of loud.
Mm-hmm.
They'd come off of Jimbo Fisher.
Yep.
Flashy, in a different way loud.
They want a boring hire?
Mike Elko.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if Mike Elko walked in here with two other people, there's three people, one of them's Mark Elko, would you be like...
And he wasn't wearing an A&M shirt.
Yeah. You're like, oh, A&M coach. No, nobody would know who... Yeah, send Mike Elko next week to media days and put him with two other athletic directors.
You know, pick him out?
Yeah.
Has Mike Elko said anything of substance...
Not today.
...in the past year that you think like, oh, yeah, he said that thing about that other team or whatever? Like, no.
Yeah,
he's pretty straightforward. Look, kind of dull. But, I mean, good football coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, but doesn't garner headlines.
I think that's what Texas A&M was looking for. They were like, look, Mark Stoops will show up, and he'll coach football, and he won't harass anybody, and it seems like a good hire. And I do think, by the way, Stoops isn't a bad coach.
Yeah.
Is he would have he taken Texas A&M to where he wanted him? No.
The belief that he was doing good with not a lot of resources at Kentucky, and that's, I guess, kind of what was endearing about him to A&M. My thought, at least.
Well, little... hating bleeping Spurrier hitting it in there too.
I can't pass up a Spurrier quote.
Yeah,
when I hear it, I have to include it.
We got to always have it. So, been a lot of fun. Day 3, fewer errors.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're learning military time.
We're learning. Yeah. Be a part of the program. Come on in, 803-404-6100. You can text in tomorrow. You can call in tomorrow. You can join in the conversation. We'd love for you too. Tyler, excellent job.
Yep. Fun stuff.
Ed, now he's just Ed.